Here we go.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 91 of CMD Towers, Brews, and Builds. I'm Mr. Com number 5, and my fellow host has developed some underworld connections in the NASCAR circuit. I am sure, Big Tuck.
How dare you? I have still not been to the museum, and if you don't know this, I've been under a gas shortage, so I drove my car 3 times this week. Also, hey, cats and kittens. Mr. Com, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna be coming in all kinds of hots and bothered today. My heart's racing, and it's not necessarily because of our guest, but today was the first day where I was like, I got a e-reader, right? One of the ink ones. So one thing as a perpetual vagrant slash like sort of loner is I have a hard time of figuring out what to do to go to a place by myself and just like hang out there, right? And not look like some sort of creep, or pedophile or other sort of thing that a large bald man with a beard would look like. Who knows, right? I wear a lot of Carhartt. I'm not sure if that's related, but I got this e-reader, a Nook, and it's like the perfect thing ever because now I have on demand like something to make me, I think, look interesting, at least what is it, literate, as well as someone who's not just sitting in a bar by himself listening to who knows what's on his podcast.
So really it's a facade because you're tricking everyone.
It's a nice camouflage.
Yes, exactly. And what they don't realize is all I'm just reading on it is just the dictionary because I don't know how to read or write. But evidently the mask mandate got lifted yesterday, and Charlotte, and specifically the lady folk of Charlotte, decided to be en masse. So that is the reason why I am sweating currently, but you, sir, are sweating for what I would wager to guess is an entirely different reason.
Yes, these are shower sweats because I just showered, half hour ago. The fiance went to go see her, what will be her maid of honor, because they're doing a little girls' day and she's going to stay with them. They live like south of Topeka. Okay. So I took the opportunity, instead of being a degenerate and just playing video games all day like I should have, or building more magic decks like I should have. I actually cleaned the house. I did laundry. Awesome. I picked up. I was a responsible adult. It's very
How do you
weird.
feel? Okay, so as someone that also burns a lot of Saturdays doing things that I shouldn't be doing, like, do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Do you feel energized? Like, are you ready to go out tonight? Like, where's your kind of energy and mindset at now?
So it was actually perfect because I actually prefer to have my evenings and late nights doing the degenerate stuff I shouldn't be doing. And so it's like, opposed to me doing nothing during the day and then being a degenerate at night, it's like I was productive and I'll be a degenerate. So it's like I feel like I earned my alcohol consumption. I earned the smoke that will fill my lungs, and the hours of plug MTGGoldfish I'm going to watch tonight. We have a guest, everyone, the amazing Tomer. Hello, Tomer.
Hey, thanks for having me, everybody. I'm really excited to be here and talk nerdy stuff.
So what have you been doing with your Saturday?
I've been also productive / procrastinating, I guess. I have a video that's coming out tomorrow, but it's not done yet, spoiler. So hopefully it'll be done by tomorrow morning when it's supposed to go up, or else there will be a talk to have with my coworkers. But I'm excited afterwards. There's a show that I would like to watch, Castlevania. I'm caught up on season 3, and there's a season 4, I believe, out on Netflix. So if I get to finish all my work, I'm going to be chilling and watching some new episodes there. So, and
just in case the audio team at Netflix, we are open to sponsorship. If you want more of that on here, and Tomer,
bases there,
Tomer, I have to say, I am a huge fan of yours. And tell me if these deck names ring any sort of bells for maybe when you first started writing. Budget Edric, Budget Rakdos, Budget Toshiro, and finally, the all-star of the group, Retraced Image. Do these all sound kind of like familiar cards you may be talking about?
A little bit, yeah. I actually have a Toshiro deck of my own as well, a paper version of it. And Retraced Image has shown up in at least 2 of my decks. Yeah. So yeah, Budget Edric too, huh? Does your playgroup hate you?
Now let me preface this before Mr. Combo comes and flames me for this. That his playgroup always hates. Yes, correct. Yeah. There's a reason why I had to move from Kansas City to find a new group to play with. Now I like to think of myself as a budget player. What unfortunately happens is I build budget decks and then hold on to them for so long, they become extraordinarily not budget. Now, not to Mr. Combo's level, but I am starting to eat some crow and or my hat by calling myself that sort of a player.
Yeah, whenever he calls himself a budget player and or a casual, hey, I'm just trying to have fun player, they're both lies. You are on notice and you have broken through the ice. So Tomer, to kind of, for the, I guess the one person that's listening to us that doesn't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the work you do at MTGGoldfish, and how people can actually find your content and engage with you.
Well, I work for a website called MTGGoldfish, and I'm the commander player there. So I basically organize and host and produce most of the content that's commander related on the website. And we actually have two YouTube channels. We have the main channel, which is MTG Goldfish YouTube channel. But we have a new one, or / newish one. It was launched in September, MTG Goldfish Commander. And that's been my baby for the almost a year now. And that is what I develop almost like entirely on me. And we have a bunch of projects that I'm really excited working there. We have weekly Commander Clash, where the Goldfish crew plays a game of Commander every single week, and we have a weird restriction theme every single week. And I also do abridged gameplay videos, and I do streams where we do games with viewers, and we do also on Sundays, we do a special stream called Backseat Brew, where we brew a deck from scratch, which I guess kind of helped me for this podcast actually a lot. So yeah, I do a bunch of Commander stuff. You could find me on the MTG Goldfish website, but also MTG Goldfish YouTube channel Commander, MTG Goldfish Commander YouTube. There it is. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we were telling Tomer before the cast that it's funny. We've had many content creators on in the last almost 2 years, and the Commander Smiths were the ones that actually wanted and kind of put the idea in my head that me and Tuck should start this channel. But getting into Commander, Tuck brought it over from China. I say that as if it was some like import export.
Perhaps something related to the recent pandemic that we've been going through.
Smuggled it in from China.
In a very similar sense, I brought it over and gave it to Mr. Combo, and then he infected Kansas City, and I'm in the process of infecting Charlotte. It's all very good.
And now we're in quarantine, and we're all playing it from spell table.
But once he kind of told me about it, I started Googling it, and then Commander Clash has been my Friday night ritual. I've watched just about every single episode every single week for the last 3-4 years, so it's been very exciting for us to have it on, and we have a very exciting deck for us to talk about. But before then, we got shameless plugs. If you guys want to be able to support the CMD Tower team and all the content we put out, head over to our sponsor, Level 1 Game Shop. They do tabletop games, they do singles, they do sealed product. Amazing people down in the bottoms here in Kansas City, or the River Market, however you want to kind of categorize those areas. And very exciting, guys. We have been talking with the shop, and we will be getting ready for in-person games coming up. We will be doing a CMD Tower takeover, hoping to do some sort of fun draft, maybe something like Mystery Boosters or even Modern Horizons 2, to where your entry fee gets you an actual CMD Tower playmat, the sleeves, and then you get the packs to be able to sleeve up and be able to play for prizes. So be on the lookout. We will be talking about that on our main Twitter account, and obviously on the cast as soon as we get more details. But if you would like to actually help us out financially, you can head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMD Tower. We have tons of different tiers. And of course, the base one for just $1 a month gets you into the Discord, which, this is something we haven't talked about before, but usually whenever we have a guest on, we usually have them join into the channel so that way they can answer questions about the deck, be able to engage with the community. So if you guys want to ask Tomer some questions about the deck that we'll be talking about, join for just $1 and you can ask questions, and maybe he'll answer. Maybe he'll, tag
me.
Maybe he'll leave the Discord after a day in there after seeing what sort of nightmare.
No.
We are waiting for him.
I have a lot of Discord, so if you tag me, I will be for sure notified, and then I'll respond. If you don't tag me, it's I don't know.
Yeah, it's a 50-50.
Yeah.
And of course, guys, all the way up to where you can get our playmat, our sleeves, our coin, our tokens, all the different stuff. Plus, you get additional entries into the monthly giveaways that Level 1 provides. If you're an existing patron and you have a friend at an LGS, in your own play group, and you think they'd really like to be a part of our community, we do have a referral program. So just when they join, have them message us on Patron, let them, inform us of who referred them, and then we'll send you some free swag. So hook you up also. But hey, if you want to get some of that swag, but maybe you can't do a monthly commitment or whatever, your financial needs are, you can just go buy it directly at our store, cmdtower.com/merch. We do sell everything in there, and the ongoing bit that will not die is I need you guys to buy this stuff to get it out of my basement so my fiance will let me sleep in the bed again. And of course, the free way is just share the content that you're watching and listening to, because every little bit of interaction from the collective really does help. And of course, Pink Royal, we really appreciate the music you guys provide to us in the beginning and the end of the episodes. And T-Coats, our amazing video editor at _T-Coats on Twitter. Let him know how you like the YouTube videos, things that he does well, things that we can improve on, because we're always looking to make the content better. So Brews and Builds is our deck tech series. Since we conquered the path to 32, we have moved on to the endless themes that EDH can bring us, and each month will be a new theme, and we correlate how these decks are constructed similar to how beer is brewed. We broke it down into 4 different categories. The first one's ramp and setting your board. We call that grain.
And grains are the foundation of every beer. They include both base malts and specialty malts, usually about a 60-40 ratio. This helps with the color, the taste, and most importantly, the alcohol content of a beer. Decks always need ways to grow, stabilize, and ramp into your bigger threats, and just look at your grain profile, they're usually a mix of staples and specialty cards.
And then the next is, how does your board interact with all of your opponents? We call that hops.
And hops give the beer its patented bitterness and herbal floral flavors. They grow in a variety of strands, such as Centennial, Citra, Pacific, Gem, and Ella, and help distinguish subcategories like this cruising down the street in my 6'4" IPA. Our hop choices. Can you do an easy bit? Do you have that, Mr. Combo?
I mean, cruising down the street in my 6'4".
Nailed it. I knew you could bail me out of this one. Our hop choices help clear and interact with the board, so your deck can ultimately do what it wants.
And then, of course, my favorite section, which we're going to have to address in the bottle capping, not a lot of ways, but how does the deck close out, win the game, or, and I guess this deck actually does do it, accomplish what the commander wants? We call that yeast.
And yeast are living microorganisms that eat the sugar from the grain and poop out alcohol and CO2. It adds alcohol content and the carbonation. Without yeast, you'd be drinking flat sugar water, and without yeast cards, your deck wouldn't meet the goal of actually winning the game.
Then we have Altar of the Brutes. I'm just kidding. They're shenanigans. These can be pet cards, synergies in the deck that we just kind of think are fun or maybe loosely fit the theme. We call that spice.
And not every beer has them, but spices and other additives help separate a normal stock beer from a specialty one. It could be the pepper that turns a stout into jalapeno stout, or the vanilla beans that turn a porter into a vanilla porter. Not every deck has something that makes it pop, but if it does, this is where we talk about it.
And then we have a bottle capping to round out the episode, and usually this is a cut and add that's under $5, under $50, and a no budget. But hey, this is budget month, so they're all going to be budget. The only restriction is we can't talk about those mana-only lands, which I guess doesn't even apply because those aren't even budget. So without further ado, let's get brewing. And of course, it's budget month, so we had to bring on an amazing brewmaster in Tomer from MTGGoldfish, aka Budget Commander, with his special Weatherlight brew with Daxos the Returned. So Tuck, why don't you read what Daxos is and does, and then Tomer, give us your thoughts on how you brewed this deck.
Yes, and Daxos the Returned is a legendary creature, zombie soldier, that's a mythic, coming in at about $4.30. For one colorless, a white and a black, you get a 2/2 that says whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you get an experience counters, RIP, won't be seeing these ever again. And then for a colorless, a black, and a white, you put a white and black spirit enchantment creature token onto the battlefield. It has this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of experience counters you have.
So yeah, Tomer, you and I collaborated a little bit, not to spoil too much, guys, but we kind of talked about it earlier in the week on MTG Action 4 News. Squee McGee, our resident Weatherlight report, he usually tries to brew decks that there aren't a lot out there. So he threw the challenge out there with Ephemia, the cacophony for Tomer to brew. Tomer looked at it and he was like, I can't in good conscience build a deck that actually wants this as the commander.
My hubris, I was the one who offered. I was like, you know what? I'm Budget a commander. Can't do any of them. It's fine. You pick. You guys pick. And I'll just come up with something really easy.
Here's what was shocking, Tomer. We were talking about it on Action 4s. I think there's a decent deck in that. Like, I think there's a lot of different ways you could have gone. So it's very surprising to me to see that, some would say balked, some would say quivered, but, you decided to go in different directions. Yeah, flinch, there you go.
Yeah, I saw it. I couldn't really, I started to brew with it. And when I was like halfway done, I was like, there's nothing that I found, at least, that was like super, super interesting to me. So I was like, I looked at the card itself. I saw there was enchantments. It cared about enchantments. It had a zombie theme, and I kind of played off both. And I just saw that there wasn't enough for me enchantment-wise support in just mono black. And then the zombie thing, I was like, oh, but I wish I was another zombie commander. So I was like, you know what? You know what? I'll just go Orzhov. And I'll sneak the card that was requested into the 99 and make it like an important piece of the puzzle. So that's how I approach it. I was like, that was a compromise, maybe I bit off more than I can chew, but I was really happy with the end result here.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came up with this build of Daxos the Returned?
All right, so I wanted that so-called like secret commander to be important to the deck, and for the flavor, the hopsy flavor of it to marinate. Or I'm really bad with the beers analogies, but there's flavors in the beers, and Ephemia is definitely in there as an integral piece. And I kind of built around that. I wanted to go Enchantress, so I ended up going into not just Enchantress, but a sub-theme of Enchantress, auras. So specifically creature enchantments as the main theme of the deck. And this deck is incredibly control-y and grindy. Those are the main things that I was trying to accomplish with Daxos the Returned. The idea here is inevitability. You want to have a lot of very early good answers to your opponents, lock them down, constantly draw cards, constantly hit your lane drops, and then slowly develop a board of tokens and overrun your opponents with tokens. And just the longer the game goes, the better it is, hopefully, for this deck to just grind people out until eventually just they can't keep up anymore. So that's the idea. You flood with the ever-flowing amount of tokens. They drown in the fizz of the beer, and we're good.
it's like
So hold on. Let me understand. So you, Tomer, built a deck that likes to draw cards. That's blasphemy. I've been watching Beta Clash for years. You hate drawing cards.
Also, out of my ballpark for sure.
Did you also follow your own remedy or recipe when brewing this with your 50 sources of mana ramp and your removals and your surprise finisher? Ha! I knew
Not
it.
Really. Not really. I gotta throw it together. I think the biggest thing here that I missed, probably, I didn't even count it, but probably the mana is a little bit low. It was literally a Killian deck. I adopted it from a Killian deck, and Killian was really weird, where you didn't want a lot of other ramp because Killian's inherent ramp is so high. So I missed on a little bit of some of the mana. Also, I kept it. I know you guys were doing like a 78-cent average deck list. Mine isn't really like that. I just aim for $40 on MTGGoldfish. So there are some weirdness there too, based on that. There's some cards that would be like, why the heck is it? It's not even that expensive. It's $1 card. And it's like, well, I wanted it to be under $40, so I replaced it with a worse version. But we can go into that a little bit later. But yeah. Sure. I don't know. Overall, I think it's pretty good, but it's definitely probably lacking on the mana at the very least.
I mean, honestly, this is a deck that I would fear as I see it later in the game, because you do have almost 30 enchantments in the deck. And we have a friend that'll occasionally play with us, and he just has the precon of Daxos, good old Denny, and that deck smacks because those experience counters are impossible to get rid of unless you restart the game, which no one ever does that Karn Planeswalker because it's been outclassed. And I mean, when you start and it's like a 1 or a 2, it's like, okay, whatever. But it snowballs into those tokens being 8, 9, 10 power very, very quick. And with Daxos only being 3 mana, yes, he is a hot hot removal target, but it's easy to cast him for 7 when you're on turn 14. Right. And then it's like, oh, it's still only 3 mana to generate that token. And at that point, it's probably a 12-12 or 13-13. And you have a little bit of recursion in the deck. So even though you're at 29 enchantments, you, in theory, and I know this never happens in Magical Christmas again, but if you cast at every enchantment, you still have the opportunity to probably recast another half of the enchantments. So I mean, your experience counter potential is the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what the deck is all about. It's like playing cheap enchantments, trying to be mana efficient with it. Cards that, especially cards that replace themselves. Cheap enchantments that replace themselves by drawing a card when they're into the battlefield are like the key to the deck as a whole, because it fuels everything. It fuels Daxos, it fuels Constellation, it fuels cards that want you to sacrifice because I'm a mean person, and I had a little bit of stacks, just a little bit of stacks element as well. But it does all of it, and it's just like incremental value. And I've been on the receiving end of Daxos many times, and just as soon as he gets like 4 counters on him, and you're just making 4/4s, eventually it's just like, yeah, he'll die, but then he's from Theros, and Glory of the Sun will bring him back from the graveyard if he gets too costly, and eventually he just keeps putting tokens, and you run out of board wipes or whatever, and you're like, all right, I guess I died to tokens, which is really fun. I thought you were gonna be
really cute and do like both Elspeth like Escape from Death or whatever, and the new Daxos, and be like, okay, I see what you're trying to do here.
I'm not that good. I just went for 1.
So from a deck constructed perspective, and this is something that we've started doing, and so Tomer, I'm curious, when you build decks, if you look at this, before in the past, it would just be like, okay, I'm more of a 34 to 35 land person, and so it's like, okay, let me get my lands, and okay, I think I just need even distribution. And so as me and Tuck have done this cast, we've actually started to see like, wow, our mana base is way off. Like, we need way more blue, for example, than we have access to. So when I'm looking at your pie chart, it looks like you're a dead even like we normally build, but it looks like you could actually use a little bit more white mana. Did you do that on purpose? Like, do you need that even split? Or do you think if you actually played this, whether it be on Commander Clash or in paper, that you might eventually see, like, you know what, I do probably need more plains. Let me cut a couple swamps and replace those.
I think you're actually bang on there. I didn't really look at the color distribution, and I definitely should have. I think I could have added more white sources into the deck and less black ones. Looking at it, and also a lot of the ramp options aren't really mana fixing. They're colorless cost reducers. So those don't help either. So it's really like the lands, and I think maybe two artifacts that mana fix there. So I think you're correct. I would if I change it up, I'd probably add maybe some more plains, or maybe a couple more of the tap lands that if I'm missing any of the cheap ones, throw them in there.
And believe you me, there's been many times where we'll bring up a deck that me and Mr. Combo built before we started doing this and be like, yeah, even lands and the mana is way off.
Yeah.
And then so the other thing I noticed, and I think this is a conscious decision because you did want to do those cheap auras and enchantments. Your CMC's 3-2-1, very, very good. And I think with budget decks, and you being the budget person at MTGGoldfish, you tell me if I'm thinking wrong. I'm personally not a budget player. I just build decks that I find interesting, and unfortunately, they usually end up being like $400 to like $800 just because of the price phenomenon we're in right now.
It's like an expensive hobby.
Yeah, it really is. All the vacations I could have taken if I didn't have Magic the Gathering. I feel like, though, with budget decks, you need a very low CMC because of the fact that you don't have access to things like a Soul Ring, for example, or, those really efficient mana rocks or even lands. So you kind of have to have a very low curve just so you can actually do stuff. So you're not like, well, land pass, and then it's by turn 4 or 5 before you're even doing anything. Is that a fair assessment, or am I maybe thinking wrong?
I think you are correct. Depending on how extreme the budget is, if something like Sol Ring is outside of the budget, Sol Ring's not too expensive these days. I think it's like $2-3, which, I mean, it depends on your budget, right? Like if you're going extreme budget,
Right.
It's not even on the table. And then you don't have access to the most insane ramp stuff. Like the most insane of anything, any category is going to be expensive just inherently. The best ramp is going to be too expensive, like Smothering Tithe and whatnot, way too expensive. The best anything, the best removal, whatever, those are often going to be out of your budget range if you're going an extreme budget, like your 78% or 78 cent average decks, for example. I think just in general, though, most decks could get some advantages out of lowering their mana curve, even the more expensive ones. And that's kind of what you see at like the higher end of the tables too, the higher end of the pool. A lot of people try to keep their curve as low as possible, and I think that's just like a general good deck building idea for power level if you care about that. The faster your deck can carry out its goal, the faster and more consistently you have a chance to win the game. But yeah, it's more important on a budget too, because you just don't have the faster mana, the more explosive mana to go off for more higher end curve stuff.
Makes sense. Well, Tuck, do you have any last thoughts before we dive into this?
No, I think there's a lot of really interesting cards in here that I'm really excited to talk about. And like I said, I think for something that was cobbled together just to appease us two morons, and with like such restrictions as they were, I think it actually it reads very efficient, very well. So I'm looking forward to diving more into it.
Yeah, and I think the last comment I'll make, and I think it's very interesting because, Tomer, you're actually the opposite end of the spectrum to the previous 2 weeks episodes where it was Tuck and I's budget deck. One thing that we inherently saw is in our budget decks, we hardly had any mythic rares or rares, and it's just like, oh, well, of course, they're expensive, so obviously...
Oh my gosh, I just looked at that.
You actually have 22 mythic rares and rares combined.
I think that's more...
Which is just shocking.
That's more than both of our budget decks combined, right?
I know.
I love reprints. There's some cards that are like really good in the format that thankfully Wizards of the Coast has been shoving into like every single precon. Like there's a certain Titan, and that is like one of the best Titans out there. It's just a really, really efficient Titan. And it's been reprinted to the ground, thankfully. So it's like under $1 or whatever, which makes it, which is just a delight to have in there. But I guess I never really considered rarity when deck building. That's not something I filter for, but I guess it's cool that there's also some stuff here that's very niche that you don't really see outside of like this sort of Orzhov Enchantress thing. So that inherently too, if there's less demand on it, the card isn't going to be too pricey, which is good too.
Yeah, because I think it's something to where unless WotC is going to downshift the rarity of a card, most of the times the rares and mythics are supposed to be the quote-unquote good cards in a set. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to be broken and so they're inherently expensive, but usually it means that they're more powerful than your commons and uncommons. And so I think that probably speaks to why when we look through your deck, it's like, there's something here. Yeah. It's because you were able to put in 22 quote-unquote powerful cards and still keep it under a budget. So kudos there. Even though it wasn't something you were consciously thinking of, I think it was very cool how you were able to dig up some of these cards that kind of fit that mold.
Thank you.
So, all right, guys. Well, let's get brewing. Tomer, obviously your deck. Let's start with you. What is your first grain card you think would be key for a Daxos budget deck?
Well, for this particular build of auras, any way of cheating on the mana, any powerful source of ramp on a budget is key. Like we just discussed earlier, we don't have access to Soul Ring, we don't have access to Mana Crypt. So there's one card that I would consider like the aura Soul Ring, the plus even in this deck. And it's a very inky style of dueling, I would say. And it's very much, it doesn't read auras right on the card, which is really cool. It doesn't say anything about enchantress or auras, and yet it just makes all of our auras insanely cost effective. Like as soon as this you just summon a duel, you send the guy into the Shadow Realm, into this inky realm, you suddenly can just vomit out your hand, and this one card I think is like integral for mana.
I think you and I are on the same page with this because this card is amazing. 3, 2, 1.
Killian Ink Duelist.
Yeah, what a banger.
I'll read the card off, and then Tomer, I think, go into a little bit more detail about how amazing this card is, because this is phenomenal. Even though it doesn't say anything about enchantments, it literally does what you want with your auras. So for Orzhov, guys, that's a white and a black. It's a legendary creature, human warlock, uncommon from Strixhaven. It's a 2/2 with lifelink, menace, and spells you cast that target a creature cost 2 less to cast. And I think that is so cool that it doesn't even say a creature you control, just a creature. Oh, that's so cool. So Tomer, why don't you give us a little bit more insight to Killian Ink Duelist?
So I actually brewed a Killian deck for a backseat brew. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this was an Orzhov Aura Voltron deck. It shared a lot of similar cards, but it was very much the auras, instead of focusing on control and just incremental value, it was all about just like turning Killian into a lethal one-shotter as quickly as and efficiently as possible. So while it's the same archetypes, the fact that it's Voltron instead of control makes it play incredibly differently. Exact opposite. Kill trying to kill immediately, whereas this deck is trying to kill very slowly. Death by spoon, I guess. But regardless, Killian in the 99 is going to be fantastic here because it's still an aura deck, and a lot of the cards here target creatures or our own creatures or opposing creatures or some non-creatures as well. And anytime we're targeting a creature with any of our auras, we can do up to 2 colorless less. And that's just like insane. Like if Killian's on the battlefield, we don't really need any other ramp, really, because we still need some mana to do things. But oh my goodness, it's so insane.
Yeah, I really like it because and I think you hit the nail on the head, Tomer, to where this is kind of like your Soul Ring for the deck. So really, if you think about it, Soul Ring's a colorless. This is just 2 mana, so it's 1 more. But Soul Ring only works once, and then that's it, which is still great. But the fact that if you have a bunch of your cheap auras, which this deck is filled with them, in theory, you're almost just paying 1 mana to cast all of them. So 1 mana here, 1 mana here, 1 mana here, because you're constantly getting that 2 reduction. So I think this is one of those cards that people may not inherently think of when they think of a, let's just call it, target creature deck. Because, uncommon, it's only a quarter. It's not like super sexy or anything, but it's a sneaky good card that could probably fit into a lot of decks.
I agree with all your guys' points. The card is busted, especially for a quarter. And I think one thing that's, even though this isn't a Commander Voltron build, the fact that he comes stapled with Lifelink and Menace mean that he's going to be able to go into the red zone is actually pretty critical, because there are a lot of things in this deck where it's like, pay X life, pay X life, pay X life, right? That kind of will nickel and dime yourself to maybe like down 10 or 15 that can easily be pumped up by him with his Menace and his Lifelink on his own.
Mm-hmm. Yep, completely agree.
Or if you will, they will dinks and dunks you as opposed to trips and grabs you.
Jeez. Nice. Oh, with the dad jokes as always. All right. Well, so obviously that was my first one. So my second one, I wanted to go a little bit more in detail about the secret commander of the deck. So we're going to be talking about Ephemia the Cacophony. So we talked about it during the Weatherlight report, but I wanted to give it a little bit more spotlight, specifically about how Tomer built this deck. So colorless black, legendary enchantment creature Harpy, which is great because all those enchantment creatures trigger on Daxos. It's a 2/1 with flying, and it's a rare from Theros Beyond Death at 13 cents. So it has flying, and at the beginning of your end step, you may exile an enchantment card from your graveyard if you do create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So the number one negative when it comes to auras versus equipments is that when the creature that the aura has gets killed, the aura is gone. It's in your graveyard. And so that's why a lot of people, I think, migrate more to the equipment side, and also why you probably see more equipments are higher on the price tag. It's because of the fact they are reusable. But Ephemia actually makes amazing sense for this deck because all you really care about is you want that experience counter from casting the enchantment. And yeah, you may get some cool benefits from the aura, but eventually someone's going to board wipe, someone's going to remove it, whatever. And even if someone exiles the creature, the enchantment still goes to the graveyard. And now what this allows you to do, and I think it's a great grain card, is you get to exile those auras that essentially are useless outside of the few recursion stuff that you have to make a 2/2 blocker. That's basically the way I'm looking at this is, hey, I'm going to recycle this card that I already got an experience counter off of. I got the effect that it provided when it entered the battlefield, and I made someone waste a removal on it. Well, let's add a fourth benefit and create a 2/2 black zombie creature token.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think the same thing that stacks with this that does with Killian is like, again, this is something that you can just suit up with all these auras you have and start blasting people in the face in the red zone.
Yeah, I think like most of the auras, a lot of the auras are mostly there just to like cantrip and be super efficient and trigger a bunch of things. But they do have a bunch of useful abilities on them. I mean, it could be a lifelink, it could be a little bit of a pump or whatever, and then having it on an evasive beater is just really nice. But I think that's all true. Like with Ephemia, is that it's an enchantment itself, so it already triggers all these Enchantress Matters cards like Daxos. It's super efficient too. You don't have to pay any extra mana, and as we already discussed earlier, like the Dex mana is okay. It's okay, but any way to be like as efficient as possible is highly recommended. Daxos already is a big mana dump because you still have to pay 3 mana to make every single token. But Ephemia does it for free, and we don't necessarily need all the auras and whatnot once they're in the graveyard. We have there are some decks, some ways to recur them afterwards, but it's also just perfect to just get a 2/2 zombie, and then next turn you get a 2/2 zombie. Eventually it will deter attacks, and eventually as a lot of the deck makes tokens, eventually you just reach a critical mass. And then you can start attacking with them and close out the game.
Yeah, and I think the last point, going back to the fact that it's also an enchantment, is, Tomer, all of your other grain cards that reduce the cost of your enchantments, people just don't think that the enchantment creature is also applied to it. So very likely when you are ready to cast Ephemia, you're casting it for a black. Which, I mean, it's still, it's only 2 mana, so it's only a 1 reduction. But that can add up when you may have a grip of auras that you're trying to get as much value and get through the deck and get as many experience counters as you can. Having it just be 1 is great. So, awesome card. Glad you were able to secretly brew it from a Weatherlight.
Couldn't make it in the command zone, but it's all right.
You always need a backup, man. You always need a backup.
Tuck, what is your first grain card?
So I want to talk about a card that lets you pay life and draw cards, but doesn't necessarily have the potence to do it when you want. Oh, okay. I guess no one else.
I get it. I know.
So Necrologia is a really interesting card, and I chose it not because it's a great fit for this deck, but because I want to talk to Tomer about it. So 3 colorless, double black. For an instant, cast it only during your end step. As additional cost to cast Necrologia, pay X life, draw X cards. So, I got keen on this card because I used to own like 10 copies of this when I was younger. I was like, this card's trash. How am I supposed to draw any sort of cards off it? But then I got reintroduced to it with Tomer, your Toshiro deck, right? Into which this card's a complete all-star. So I think like as the game has progressed, the ratios of paying life and mana to draw cards have kind of been all over this place. This card hasn't been reprinted in a really long time. So Tomer, my question mostly is around like, since you've seen the success with Toshiro, is this now a kind of standard card that you are running more because you see the efficiency in the draw and everything else that goes into it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this card is kind of busted in most black decks. There are obviously downsides to it because you're going to pay a lot of life. Usually I cast this for like 10 minimum.
Right, yeah.
Because I'm crazy. And then yeah, it's also your end step, so you can't really take advantage of those cards immediately. Unless you're in Toshiro, and then it's all upside. It doesn't matter because they're all instants, so who cares?
Right.
In this deck, you're playing it more fairly. You're just, paying 5 mana at your end step, draw 10 or whatever. And then you don't get access to the cards until your next turn cycle. And you probably will have some opponents who are like, oh no, he drew 10. plus cards.
Right.
Yep.
We just talked about that in our Council of the Unbanned, where we talked about unbanning Yawgmoth's Will, which is a whole different discussion. But yes, we talked a lot about.
Bargain.
Yawgmoth's
Bargain.
Yeah. Bargain. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we did, but like that was a lot of that was. Is it scary that you're just drawing? Is the real threat that you just drew a bunch of cards, which all of which could just be complete junk or lands or whatever? So same idea with this, I would argue.
Well, yeah, I would say this card is significantly worse just because you don't have access to the cards immediately. Unless you have access, you can play them on Flash or whatever.
Sure.
So even though it's not like its best case scenario in this deck, I still think it's kind of insane. Like just paying 10 life, paying 5 mana, drawing 10 cards. This deck has a lot of like incremental card advantage, but sometimes you just really need some burst draw. You just need to refill your entire hand. Yeah. And also, like, the dream is, like, you fill your graveyard with a bunch of auras and enchantments or whatever, and then you mass reanimate them on your next turn. And that's just, like, that's just the best ever. That's the best thing ever. But, yeah, I really like
that was the point that I was going to make. And, you know, Tomer, I do this a lot with my play group. I probably shouldn't say this on a cast that they're all listening to. But there's nothing better than... I have to discard down to hand size. And you start throwing stuff in the graveyard. And it's like, oh gosh, they threw a bunch of good stuff in there, man. Mr. Combo must really be hurting right now, because I literally did that 2 40 life and a dash Sundays ago with the Silver Quill deck. I threw Zatalpa in the graveyard, and I was like, oh man, when am I ever going to cast this 9-drop? And then the next turn I reanimated it. There's nothing better than kind of doing that decoy of the boy who cried.
I just need to land, guys. I just need to land. I drew 20. I only needed a land, right?
At least I found a land.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right. Well, Tomer, I think you have one more grain left. What is your last grain card?
All right. So I'll make it a little bit harder for you because you guys are good at these. So if people know me in terms of Commander, I often daydream about card draw. And there's one card here that's it's on theme. It's flavorful. It's probably one of my favorite cards in its color. And it draws a lot of cards. And it just kind of makes, like, if I ever have to choose an archetype, if the archetype can run it, I'm like, yeah, this is me. This is what I like. And this is a deck that definitely can take a lot of what this deck is doing and just condense it into sweet goodness. And it's my favorite card in the entire deck.
Can I wager a guess? My card is not dealing with draw cards at all. My choice. Is it Promise of Power? Because I know you're keen on that one as well. Damn it.
All right. Well, what is it? I'm curious.
It is Sage's Reverie. With Reverie being pleasantly lost in a daydream.
Wow! Oh my God! What a lead!
That's a lot of stuff. Well, yeah. Why don't you read off that card for us? And I don't even think it needs an explanation of why it's your favorite.
Yeah. So Sage's Reverie is a 4-mana white enchantment. Aura. It's enchant creature. When Sage's Reverie enters the battlefield, draw a card for each aura you control that's attached to a creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each aura you control that's attached to a creature. This is my favorite card in the entire deck, and it's like one of the reasons why I love auras as an archetype so much. This deck is all about auras, all about enchanting stuff with cheap, efficient auras. And then this is one of the biggest payoffs. Like once it enters the battlefield, you're often drawing 4 or 5 cards just off it. And also it acts as a finisher because whatever you enchant with it becomes this huge monster that has to now be dealt with. So it does the heavy lifting in the deck, and it's one of my favorite cards in white. And we already mentioned these 2 cards already, but Killian and Fimia are great candidates for both of it. Fimia has flying, and Killian has menace and lifelink. So you put this on either one of them, and it's going to do some serious damage. Any evasive beater is going to just absolutely love this. But even if you don't, like, even if you just draw like 5 cards, whatever, it's amazing. So
also, this card also might as well read Big Tuck's a Moron, because it just occurred to me today that this says that's attached to a creature, and +1/+1 something that's attached to a creature, not the one it's enchanting, because I've only ever seen this in aura builds that are Voltron. So wow, that card's way better.
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm hot on the card, is because of the fact that usually cards like these read attached to this creature or just one specific creature or target creature, something like that. But the fact that it just kind of looks at your entire board, it deters away from the, I have to load everything up on one and do like a Voltron strategy. You could still kind of sprinkle your auras around, and you're still getting all of the benefit of the card.
And Mr. Combo, to refine your point, you look at the entire board, because it's not the creatures you control. So if someone else is playing Voltron,
oh God, I didn't even think of that.
Right. So if someone else is playing Aura, Voltron, or an Enchantress deck, you are also reigning the benefits, because it's attached to a creature.
It does say Aura you control.
Yeah.
Or you control. Okay, gotcha.
Auras. So now, granted, it does still look at the whole board if you are
slinging around. Yes, fair point.
It doesn't actually have to be physically.
Yeah, and this deck also has removal that is enchanting opposing creatures to nullify them. Some stuff just like basically pacify the creature so they can't really do anything. Those are some of my favorite removal spells because they're super efficient, and they count them too. So yeah, it's like you don't have to put it all on the same creature. You can put it on any creature, and then which is really fun. It works perfectly in the deck.
Awesome. Tuck, you got one more. Why don't you wrap up the green section?
This is going to be a quick one, because I don't know how every single person I've ever talked to happened to miss that this card that came out earlier this year in the first set of 17, Starmine Closer, 2 colors and a white for a creature Pegasus 2/2, flying, artifacts and enchantment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Why is no one talking about this card? It's 9 cents. This is insane.
Wow. That is amazing.
Yeah, not only is it a Windrake in white, so it's completely worthless mana cost, but also artifact and enchantment spells, not auras, not equipment, any sort of blanket statement. I reread this card like 4 times. I was like, why do I not own 4 copies of this? Why have I not heard anyone else talk about this out in the multiverse? Just a complete banger for this card, or for this deck rather, and like any deck that cares about either of these 2 archetypes.
I mean, could an argument be made, since it is only 9 cents, it does have evasion, and it's only 3 mana? Do you maybe is this a mono, or is this a white standard? Because most decks that have white probably have, let's just call it 5 to 8 mana rods.
Oh, at least.
And usually they have, 5 or 6 enchantments. And I think if, roughly 14 or 15% of your deck is impacted by a card, it probably justifies putting the card in the deck, wouldn't you say?
Well, why don't you, this card, I just realized this card is a slam dunk for my Voltron Partners deck in Jeskai. Because all it's playing are artifacts and enchantments of Voltron or like board control.
I mean, I think you guys nailed it. It really depends. Like, whenever you look at any sort of discount card, the real question you have to do when you're comparing it to another ramp card is basically, will I get its discount every single turn consistently? In this deck, it has 28 plus 5. It has 34 targets that it works with. Wow. Actually, it works with more than that, because I'm not even counting the creatures. Yeah, there's some enchantment creatures. So it's like 30 or so, 40 or so cards that it ramps out. So I would say consistently every single turn you're going to get 1 discount. So it's basically already there with like a Mind Stone, for example.
Right, exactly.
Mind Stone is going to tap for 1 every single turn, no matter what. This one is more situational, but if you can hit it every single turn, then it's already as good as a Mind Stone. If you can get the discount more than once every single turn cycle, it's now better than a Mind Stone,
right? And
it's a staple for the deck, I would say. So it's as good at the very worst if in your decks where it's like 40% of the deck you can play, and then it can be much better than that if you are chaining together multiple things and getting the discount even further, because then it's essentially tapping for like 2 or 3 even, if you can cast 3 things off it.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up the green section. Now we're going to head over to the hot profile, and I will kick this one off with a card that kind of goes into the Staxy piece that Tomer talked about. It is also an enchantment creature.
God damn it.
And it is an Agent of Darkness, one would say. We are talking about Agent of Erebos.
Yes, it's insane. This
card is phenomenal. 3 colorless black, enchantment creature zombie. Hey, zombie tribal, let's go. It's an uncommon, it's 2/2, and it's coming around a quarter. And it does have Constellation. Constellation basically says on this, whenever Agent of Erebos or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. It's not just one card, which is, when I first glance at the card, I'm like, oh, okay, it's probably just going to exile target card from a graveyard. No, the entire graveyard is gone. And I think with what we've seen in the last 18 to 24 months is somewhat of a renaissance of more graveyard matters decks, not necessarily like where we're constantly reanimating, but it's just more the graveyard's a second hand. Let me use these resources a second or third time. Very much like my terrible Jeskai flashback deck. And like we talked about, there's 29 enchantments in the deck at a minimum, not even counting the enchantment creatures. So I think this is another one, Tomer, to like your point with the Starheim Courser. This is a card to where if you can consistently get one activation each turn, then it's basically like I'm Bajuka bogging a person every single one of my turns.
And it fits into one of your 8 Tomer pathways to success of building a deck, aka Graveyard Hate.
Yeah, I mean, I've respected graveyard decks for a very long time. When I first got into Commander, this was with the original Precons, Commander 2011. And my play group, each of us basically picked up a Precon and we started just playing with them, and that's how I got introduced to the format. And one of the Precons was Carador Ghost Chieftain, I believe.
Mr. Combo is very familiar.
Yeah, and the person who built it, he immediately upgraded. He was one of the oldest Magic the Gathering players in the group. He had a lot of cards that worked really, really well in Carador, and he souped up his deck. And basically, we were just all at the mercy of him because we had a lot of removal, a lot of creature removal, but it did not matter because Carador just would always cost 3 or whatever because he had half his library in his graveyard on like turn 2 or whatever because he had like a Hermit Druid or something like that. And it was incredibly difficult. We had answers to his board, but it didn't matter because the recursion was too good. And then eventually I was like, all right, eureka moment. Maybe I should run a little bit more graveyard than like a single Bajuka Bog in my deck with no tutors. So I started adding like Expedition Map to find the Bajuka Bog and stuff like that. And then I added a little bit more. And then I was like, you know what? I have a Zedru deck and I don't have any recursion. I have like one side in Untitled. Why don't I just put Rest in Peace in my deck? And then I donate to him to just like really rub it in. He stopped playing Carador against me, but I walked away with an important lesson that basically every single deck these days is a graveyard. Like, every deck has some amount of graveyard recursion. It just makes good sense just to have like card draw or removal. You want also graveyard recursion, but like a lot of decks these days are graveyard decks, even the ones you don't even think are supposed to be graveyard decks, like land decks. Any land deck wants like Crucible of Worlds and all that stuff, and it just is playing with their graveyard at all times. A Lorehold just went full graveyard too, like Boros, the Lorehold deck went full graveyard. So
Tomer, your own pet deck, Toshiro, is effectively a graveyard deck, right? Even though it's mono black Spellslinger.
It cries when somebody puts a big Bajuka Bog and hits all the stuff that I had in there. Half the deck's value is gone, so it definitely hurts me a lot as well. And like half my decks are also, if you wipe my graveyard, I'm very sad. I don't think I have a single deck that doesn't have graveyard recursion, and some of them are even just entirely focused, like the Shiro. So Agent of Erebos is kind of insane in that regard. It's also the same with Daxos, because Daxos's tokens are enchantments, so you can trigger Constellation at instant speed.
Oh my!
So if somebody's going for like a reanimate or something on your turn, and you have Daxos in the battlefield, and you have 3 mana up, You just make an enchantment creature, trigger Constellation, boom, it's gone. And it's like,
Nice.
okay.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, and I think, Tomer, to your point about how decks that you may not even think are graveyard decks kind of have that. And I think the perfect example is on episode 2 of Brews and Builds, we talked about my first deck I ever built, Karametra, God of Harvest, and it's a Angel Elf deck. So it's like, well, how is that graveyard? Well, every cast, I'm getting a land, and I run a Myria Shepherd in the deck. And Tuck's been on the receiving end of this, to where I will just get filthy things back from my graveyard. You know, the Avacyn Angel of Hopes of the world, and R.I.P. Iona at one point. So yeah, you know, I think Agent of Erebos is a card. Once again, in this deck, you're going to get it every turn, no matter what. So that's amazing. And to your point, Daxos can make it. But I think, guys, when you look at your decks that have black, and you're like, should I be running an Agent of Erebos? I would say if you at least have 15 enchantments in the deck, it's pretty easy. Running. You may not get it every single turn, but exiling someone's graveyard even every other turn for you just playing the game is still very powerful. All right, Tuck, what is your first Hops card?
So this is a card that I've always been very interested in. It is from the trash set that we correctly identified as Throne of Eldraine. It is an trash.
I love
nothing
the flavor
good
of it, though. I'm so sad.
Oh no, ours is complete sarcasm, Tomer. That was our very 1 or 2 episode of our new
set review.
We started that, and it was our first deck review, and me and Tuck trashed it, and then obviously the set exploded.
Almost once an episode, we're like, oh hey, here's this card from this trash set that's like maybe one of the best 2 cards in the deck. So this one, I guess it could have foretold us of the doom that we were writing our own worlds with. So Doom Foretold, I think, is a pretty easy slam dunk in here. So 2 colorless, an orzhov, that's a white and a black. For an enchantment, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a non-land, non-token permanent. Again, each player's upkeep. If the player can't, they discard a card, lose 2 life. You draw a card, you gain 2 life, and then you create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance, and you sacrifice Doom Foretold. So for me, the way that this deck is built is that even though it does affect you, it's meaningless because you have a lot of other things in your graveyard. Like I said, like with the backup commander, this is like catnip to it, right? Or like worst case scenario, you just sacrifice Doom Foretold and there you go. But the fact that it's not a choice, right? There's a lot of these cards where it's like you may sacrifice a creature or pay 3 life or, you know, discard a card or whatever. The fact that it's any non-land, non-token permanent, if someone's playing Enchantress, guess what? Adios land tax, right? Adios whatever else you want. Like you're always going to lose something out. That's where I think the real ceiling of the card is. Again, I can't imagine it's going to happen very often, but worst case scenario, you also get some sort of incremental value out of it. But in Commander, the 4 life difference, a 2/2 creature in a card isn't as exciting as something that's going to persist and be a thorn in your opponent's ass turn after turn after turn.
Yeah, and before you go, this card is giving me PTSD because this thing would wreck me in a arena.
Oh, right, yeah.
Throne came out because it basically turned into I have to take a turn off so they sacrifice it, and then maybe I could start playing stuff, but then they would just play another Doom Portal, and it's just like FML. Why am I even playing this?
Yeah, this card is kind of low key. It's mean, but it's not too mean. And I try to not go like super mean because I know most your average player group doesn't want to be like denied the ability to play the game. But this is more of just like a incremental removal spell that eventually will go away, maybe. But it won't take out your entire board. It's like a very delayed board wipe that just keeps pecking away at you.
Right.
And
just like a fish, just like a little bit out of a shark.
Yeah, and Tuck, Big Tuck, you actually nailed it with like the sacrifice thing is not even the appealing part. Like if it gets sacrificed, it kind of sucks. If it gets sacrificed early, it's mostly there to just constantly smoke stack somebody.
Every turn. Yeah.
And this deck has like a bunch of these auras that their main job is to enter the battlefield, trigger Constellation Enchantress, draw a card, and then they can go. You could just sacrifice them. Or if you have Daxos on the battlefield, if you have no other non-land permanents and it triggers on your upkeep, in response to the trigger, you can just pay 3.
I'll just make one,
Yeah, make a token, you just sacrifice or whatever. It's a token deck, essentially.
You actually can't sacrifice the token because it is non-token permanent.
Oh, whoops.
So that was the thing I was going to say that I actually like more about the card is we've talked about how, you getting auras and stuff into the graveyard is fine because you got recursion, you got Ephemia, blah, blah, blah. But usually this whole making your opponent sacrifices, like a Butcher of Malakir, suck because the token players are like, I'll get rid of
Adios, Elf Warrior.
That works better then. I thought it was going to be bad against tokens, but I guess it's actually good.
Yeah, no, it's amazing because then honestly what you're doing is you're either forcing them to sack their commander that's probably making the tokens or making them sack some other piece that they really don't want to get rid of. So yeah, this thing is a powerhouse. And once again, that's the reason that I hated it in Arena is because it's the non-token thing. And it's like, great, all the cheap stuff that I don't care about losing, I can't even get rid of to this thing.
So just
all right.
All-star.
Well, Tomer, what is your first hop card?
My first hop card is something that often spells doom to my opponents once I resolve it.
It's the best. I think in secret, I already know it. I didn't choose it. I think this is in secret the best card in the deck.
Yeah, this card. When I say this is a control deck, it's a control deck.
Just let her rip. Just let her rip.
It's Doomwake Giant.
Yes.
Doomwake Giant is a 5 mana, 4 and a black. Enchantment creature giant, and it has Constellation, which says whenever Doomwake Giant or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn, and it's a 4/6.
It's the best card in the deck. Like there's no argument.
It's an enchantment deck, so most cards here trigger it. Daxos can trigger it on demand because he makes enchantment creatures with his ability, and it's a one-sided ref. It does not affect your own board. It does not affect your own creatures. So your opponents basically are in a situation where it enters the battlefield and probably that same turn it's going to wipe your opponent's creatures if you have follow-up like cheap enchantments auras to kind of trigger it a bunch of times. And then afterwards, your opponents are basically in a position where they can't replay creatures onto the battlefield until they get rid of the giant. So they're in they're in a sad state, and they would very much like to kill you, but they can't because they have no more creatures. And also it's just really nice because it's also enchantment itself, so it triggers Daxos, it gets the cost reductions, and there are ways to return from the graveyard even, which is really cool. So I like it.
Yeah, it's completely bonkers.
So the couple points that I wanted to make on it: I like that it's a 4/6, that it has a big butt. I really enjoy that because it's a great blocker. But I think the thing, Tomer, and you kind of mentioned this earlier with another card with Constellation, with Daxos' ability to be able to do it at instant speed. What's like the number one blowout in green? It's Craterhoof. Like we all, and usually it's with a bunch of 1/1s or 2/2s, something like that. So the nice thing is that even if you did your Doomwake, your board wiped them, token decks can come back like gangbusters. But all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm killing Tomer. Craterhoof, ability on the stack. You could just pay 3 mana, board wipe them. And it's like, okay, well, your Craterhoof lived, but it's just going to get, what, +1/+1 or whatever it would be. But they won't have their other 15 tokens that maybe they did try to take you out. So the fact that this can be instant speed, just like the Agent of Erebos, let me get rid of stuff as I get new information, I think that's very powerful. Yes. And the fact that you can do it at instant speed kind of leads into the way that I like to play, to where if I could do something on, at any point, I actually like holding off until the last possible second, because, even if it's a simple ramp type of effect, it's like, well, I don't know what else is going to happen. Something else may impact my decision to do this. So the fact that Doomwake, it's like, well, I was going to make, 3 Daxos triggers, but I'll hold off. and and then everyone's like, well, do I even want to play anything? Because Tomer could just make 3 enchantments and board wipe me. Again. So then you're making your opponents not even do stuff. And then it's like, oh, well, you're in step before my turn. I'll go ahead and make my 3 guys, kill whatever you had out there. And then, you go about your business. You basically made your opponents take their turns off, which is amazing.
Yeah, they'll hate you, but they can't do anything about it. That's the great thing. Like, if you're going to be arch enemy, you better make sure that they can't swing back at you. And this one definitely does that.
For sure. All right. Well, my last hop card, I didn't even know this card existed. It's under a dime. It has flash and it's an aura. And it allows you, when you're killing your opponent's creatures, to, maybe I take one of them. Maybe I want it under my control. So we're talking about Minions Return. This card is Banana Hammock.
Yeah, it's quite good.
2 colorless black, enchantment aura. It's an uncommon from TBD, Ferris Beyond Death. Like I said, it's under a dime. It has flash, enchant creature. When enchanted creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control. So I believe most people are probably thinking, I'm putting that on my best creature, so then that way I can get it back.
And Mr. Combo will say, nay.
Yes. I mean, unless Daxos has gotten to the point where he's like, I don't know, 13 to recast, it's like super expensive. Maybe you throw it on Daxos because it's like, I'm an Orzhov, I'm not really spitting out 30 mana a turn. I'm probably putting it on your best thing. And then I'm going to figure out a way to kill it. And I love it because it works with cards. Yes, it does work with cards as long as it's, I believe, your opponent's turn. Like even a Kozilek that has a Monster Mash shuffle effect, because their trigger will go on the stack to shuffle it, but then your trigger is going to go on top of it to resolve first. Boom, you're stealing, the stuff that normally is impossible to steal.
I didn't even know that. That's spicy. I like that.
It's what we call
if it's on you.
Sweaty card.
Sweaty card.
So yeah, it won't work on your turn just because your trigger will go on the stack and then their Monster Mash goes on top. But as long as it's your opponent's turn, any of your opponents, you're getting those Monster Mash cards. But, and that's top end. But even bottom end, the only thing you wouldn't be able to do, I believe, would be commanders. Just because even though death triggers are here, they would just say, I'm putting it straight to the command zone. It's not even going to hit the graveyard. I believe that's the way that would work.
I think that's true.
But amazing card. And with all the recursion you have, and, we didn't talk about it in the grains, but you have Sun Titan. Could you imagine, like, let me steal your best creature. Yes, my aura goes to the graveyard, but then I'll attack with Sun Titan. I'll get it back, put it on another creature. I'm going to steal that. You almost become a theft deck, which I know wasn't initially the intention, but I think that's super, super spicy.
And I can confirm the commander thing because I tried to get effed out of that from Tegrid from single Aaron, and I got into a very heated argument because I was quite drunk, which I ended up being correct because yes, even though the commander does die and see all the die triggers, you do retain priority on top of that to move it to the command zone, so you couldn't get it back. But outside of that, you are 100% correct on every other interaction that you just described.
Yeah, I think the card's super fun too. Like I've had a lot of fun casting it in response to a board wipe. Somebody else wipes the board, and I'm like, oh, that's a really cool Eternal Witness you got. Yoink, get the regrowth effect. I have a sacrificial body. It's all good.
And Mr. Combo, I know we're going slightly out of turn, but my choice pairs perfectly with this for the exact reasons you described. Do you mind if I go ahead with it? Okay.
No, go ahead. Feel free.
Just in similar scope to how I know how imposing my will, or what Thanos would think, this card is in fact inevitable. Because it's an inevitable end. So 2 colorless and a black for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature has at the beginning of your upkeep sacrifice a creature. So the reason why I think
that's so
it's super mean, and I think the reason why this works so well with the other one that you're talking about playing at flash speed is like the options are limitless on this, right? Where usually even if you're running a Voltron deck, you at least have one utility creature or one other big creature that you also want to keep around. So now, and Mr. Combo and I have talked a lot about this, Tomer, of these like opponent modal cards where you're not doing anything, right? Well, you're doing something, but you're not making any choice. You're like, hey, opponent, this is your choice, right? Like, this is just a card I'm playing. It's up to you. So you can like really easily put people in a pickle where they're going to be making this like total Sophie's choice of, okay, this is on my commander, but I have these other creatures that I need to make my commander good, or these other creatures that I want on the battlefield. Is it worth it just to get it over with and then sacrifice my commander right now? Or do I just, like in similar scope to like Doom Foretold, know that over course after course after course, I'm going to keep losing out on these other utility creatures? So again, I think you talked a lot, Tomer, about the targeted, the removal that is targeted, that is not targeted removal in this deck. And I think this is one of the more interesting ones that you have.
Yeah, it's another fun one. It's really good against non-token decks, essentially. If it's against a token deck, then they'll be like, whatever, I have a 1/1, I'll sacrifice it. So it's not a good target there, but for any other deck, it's like you'll have creatures on the battlefield. Maybe you have the option of what you want to sacrifice. So maybe it's not going to get the best thing every single time. But it's going to chip away at them. And also, if they just have one creature on the battlefield and you just inevitably end them, well, that one's dead.
Yeah, it's a 3-mana removal spell.
It's an aura, it's an enchantment. It has all that good synergy, so it works.
Yeah, you just got to be careful that you don't put it on a secret graveyard deck, and they're like, great.
Yeah,
what a
miracle. All right. Well, Tomer, you're the last one. What is your last hop card?
So if somebody's denying me card draw, I'm feeling very wrathful. And I'm looking to wipe the board.
Oh, yeah, this card's bonkers.
Yeah, I don't really like causing doom all the time, but sometimes I just want to just blow away my opponents, but leave my stuff untouched. I don't want to blow up my own stuff. I like my stuff. So, should I say the thing?
Yeah, we're
go ahead. Yeah, so we're done.
All right, so Winds of Wrath. This is a really good board wipe as well in the deck. It's a 5-mana, 3 and double white sorcery that says destroy all creatures that aren't enchanted and they can't be regenerated. So again, this is an aura deck, and it has a lot of these, just full of these like sheep auras that cantrip, and that's their main job. Chances are you'll probably come across like 3 of them or whatever by the time you want to wipe the board. You enchant all your creatures with these random auras that are there for other reasons, and now suddenly they're protected from the Winds of Wrath, and then you just wipe the board of all non-enchanted creatures, and you're going to save most of the stuff that you wanted on your side of the board, and your opponents are going to lose basically everything. So I really like it there. It's 5 mana, asymmetrical board wipe.
There is some super spicy tech with that, because you can do that if you've put inevitable end on one of your opponent's creatures. That creature is going to live. And then they're going to have this sacrifice thing going that they can't get rid of. So I really like that, especially even if you threw it on like their indestructible
Blightsteel Colossus. There you go.
Razi or something. It's like, hey, usually a board wipe you're safe from inevitable end.
That's rude.
You will lose everything. It'll just be an
I think and Tomer, like again, as we talk about like budget options, right? A lot of the things that are like standards or staples in decks, like generic board wipes, generic removal, that sort of thing, they're kind of expensive. So again, like as you're building a budget deck, you have to like be cautious of that. It's like, do I really want to burn $5 of this deck or a tenth of this deck price on a Wrath of God when I can spend 14 cents on a card that's going to be arguably better for 1 more mana for the way that the deck works, right? And that's why I think this card is so interesting, just as how it's printed.
Yeah.
Yep, completely agree.
I think auras are this weird territory where they've covered Enchantress before with a precon, and thankfully they didn't really take off. And a lot of the really cool cards are super cheap. I don't know how long that will last, but for now, it's really fun to see like these cards are really powerful. But because people don't really play aura decks, you can get away with buying like a 14-cent staple of the deck and be really happy about it. So
exactly.
And point of order, Winds of Wrath is just inherently better than Crux of Fate. Suck it.
How dare you? That's his fault for not running dragons.
There's no dragons.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up the hop section. Now we're going to start into the yeast package, and there's only 5 options. So actually, guys, I think instead of us trying to do this whole rigmarole, I say we just go down the list. Most likely we're matched up on a bunch, but at least this way we kind of get to talk about them. And I'm even thinking the same thing for Spice because we only have 3.
We'll get to Spice in a second. So there's a card that is put there that does not belong there in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, okay.
So I'll start by reading the very first card, Ajani's Chosen. Oh my gosh, this thing is so amazing. It wrecks in my Estria deck. So Ajani's Chosen is 2 colorless, white, creature, cat, soldier. It's a rare, it's a 3/3, and whenever an enchantment ETBs under your control, make a 2/2 white kitty cat token. And if that enchantment is an aura, you may attach it to the token, which is pretty great as well, because you could throw those little type things on there to kind of spread the love, if you will. Yeah, I mean, with as many enchantments as you have, this is phenomenal. Or auras, I should say. And like we talked about, you have some of these cards to where it just counts, auras you control. And so this kind of allows you to diversify your aura portfolio, if we're talking corporate speak. Spread it out. Where, a single best removal spell in all of Magic doesn't immediately take away all your value. It's kind of sprinkled. And so now you're making your opponents, once again, modal choice. Man, they have that amazing card out there that cares about all the auras, but I don't want to board wipe because I have a bunch of good stuff too. Right? Am I just gonna bite the bullet and do it? Am I gonna maybe wait to see if someone else has an answer? And then when you have your aura spread out, you just talked about it, your Winds of Wrath, you're keeping all your tokens. Right. Very, very good card. Yeah, and especially when you think about it as like a 4 mana 3/3 on its own right. Like I think it's extremely efficient as well. Because I think honestly I think that there's 3 cards that all fill a similar slot that I think we should talk about in a row. And I think this one, Mr. Combo, is one of the more interesting ones, as you just made mention of, how you can kind of pass the token, you can pass the auras around as opposed to just getting just this raw token value. This card, if it was legendary, would probably be a pretty solid commander in and of itself.
I would agree with that. I find So a lot of the yeast here, there's going to be a recurring thing of generating tokens whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield. Or being cast, and this one generally is the weakest of the bunch, but because it synergizes with auras so well, there are some extra trickeries you can do in the deck with it, which is really neat. So yeah, this is basically what you want to do is you're developing a board, you're protecting from early attacks or deterring attacks, and then eventually you reach a critical mass, you punch people in the face and you win.
Yep.
All right. Well, Tomer, why don't you go ahead and read the next card in that East section?
All right. So the next one is very similar to the previous one Ajani's Chosen. This is Arkhan of Sun's Grace. This is 2 mana and double white for a 3/4 creature token or creature Arkhan. Flying with lifelink, and Pegasus creatures you control have lifelink, and as a constellation trigger, whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token with flying. So think Ajani's Chosen, except now it's a 3/4 with lifelink, and it makes 2/2 flying Pegasus that aren't on the ground, so they fly, and also as long as this Arkhan's on the battlefield, they also have lifelink. So it's kind of obscene, and it's also just it triggers like crazy. It's already like a big threat on the table. It makes attacking for lethal kind of impossible, especially with the lifelink. Attacking into you with lifelink is impossible early on, and then later on, they fly. They have lifelink. You're gonna kill people very quickly with it. And also again with Daxos, whenever you make a token with Daxos, it's an enchantment, so it triggers Constellation. So it's just shocking really good.
It's also shocking me this card's 38 cents, but Crested Sunmare, which is effectively the exact same card for life gain decks, is $7. Right? It's just bizarre that they're the same card, same sort of idea on them, but they're so radically different in price.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Theros had more supply than
it's newer. Crested Sunmare is a mythic, so I mean, there's a lot of other things that might be going.
People really like lifelink too, or life gain deck. So
yeah. The only thing that I'll say, it's not specifically about Arkhan's the Sun Grace, but it does tie to Johnny Chosen. I just realized there's an infinite 2-card combo with that. With Enchanted Evening. So you just literally make infinite, and unfortunately, it would make the game a draw because it's not even a May effect. I find that
it just keeps going.
Yeah, it just keeps going forever. So hey, that's why you have to have Altar of the Brood in the deck. You mill everyone.
That's one
also
of my
can't run
favorite.
Enchanted Evening because it's blue.
That's actually one of my favorite card arts in the game, and I have many iterations of Enchantress decks in the back in the past, and one of my treasured cards is a foil Enchanted Evening because not only is it such a powerful combo finisher type thing, but also I just love the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
The Gwei art, not the McKibben art, right?
This is it's Rebecca Gay. Ta-da!
Oh,
awesome.
Nice.
That is super cool.
I
was literally pulling it up on Google, and I kept trying to zoom in so I could see the card art. And every time I zoomed in, Google made the image.
This isn't big, except it's mirrored, so whatever. But yeah,
beautiful.
I just got them recently. I'm going to be hanging them up soon.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Well, Tuck, why don't you read the next one on the list?
I'm going out of order because this is a card that I actually chose, and it's completely relevant to what we were just talking about. So, Sigil of the Empty Throne, another classic card that does effectively the same thing. Also now is 70 cents. I remember when this was $6. So 3 colorless white for an enchantment. When you cast an enchantment spell, the difference here, I guess, being cast as opposed to ATB, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. So the thing that I just watched another, in similar scope to Commander Clash with MTGGoldfish, I watched another program for adults, not children, which is SCG Commander Live. Coming for you, Jimmy. But one thing that was really interesting in this deck, with this card, is I think it's better slow played versus the other two. So what had happened in this specific game was they had waited after everyone had already used their removal to play this card. And then everyone was scrambling for an answer, right? And in this deck, there's so many enchantments and so many low drop enchantments and so much enchantment recursions in auras and otherwise that it kind of makes sense that you could play some of your bigger heavy hitters, your Doomwake Giants of the world and whatnot, and then be able to slap this one down turn 7-8 and still the same turn be able to run out and create your angel army almost at will.
Yeah, this card kind of takes over games very quickly, and it doesn't trigger on Constellation, only in cast, so it doesn't work with Daxos, which is the major hit against it. But even regardless, it's not a creature itself, so it's much harder for people to remove it. Like, you can't just wipe the board of all creatures and then Sigil's gone. You have to find an enchantment removal spell for it. And the creatures are 4/4s. It's insanely large. Like, you cast like a Root of Mortality or something like that, and you just draw a card, you trigger Constellation, you have a 4/4, and it's just like, it's silly. It's a silly card. I love it so much. And yeah, it's dirt cheap because it's been reprinted to the moon. So I love it.
Yeah, and I like it because there's a card in the spice section that we'll eventually get to that you can pay a mana to return it to the hand and only cast 2 to cast.
Which, spoiler alert, it should not be in the spice section.
And I really like it because you have all of those aura discounts to where, like, that card, for example, you're basically paying white to get a 4/4 flying angel, which I think if there was any card that said, hey, Tomer, pay white and get a 4/4 flyer, you're probably like, okay,
that's good.
I'll sign up for that all day, including Tuesday.
Do it forever.
So. All right. Well, since Tuck went out of order, I'm going to get us back on order with Eidolon of Countless Battles. So good. Colorless, white, enchantment creature spirit. It's a 0/0 with Bestow. And if you guys are not familiar for Bestow is an alternate casting cost with some of these enchantment creatures to where you could actually cast it as an enchantment or an enchantment aura onto one of your creatures, opposed to it being its own independent creature. Eidolon of Battles and Enchanted Creature each get +1/+1 for each creature you control and +1/+1 for each aura you control.
It's insane.
That is filthy. I would imagine at any point in the game when you're casting this, probably, let's call it mid to late, it's probably doing a +10 to +16, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's definitely a card where it's like, if you need to have a board state, and then once you have the board state, now you're allowed to swing for lethal. So it works really well with the other Yeast cards because, like, they all make tokens. And it works well with like Killian and Ephemia, which you mentioned earlier, because they already have evasion. You put it like on any Pegasus token from made by the Arkhan or any Angel token made by the Sigil, and you just have a one shot. It doesn't do anything early on, and it doesn't do anything after a board wipe. But this is the type of card that as soon as you've developed a decent board state, this is how you close out the game very quickly.
Yeah, like the floor is pretty low on this, right? Insofar as like you have to have something else, like it's 2/2 for 4 or 2/2 for 3, and that's it. But again, if you can slap it on anything that we just talked about, even like when the experience counters on Daxos's spirits are 5, slapping it on one of those, and then knowing that you're going to get it back even if it dies, insane value for the cost.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, there's only one more yeast card left, so Tomer, do the honor.
So this is a very cute card that I've
never seen this card before ever, and was incredible.
I've never played it before. I never had the opportunity to even see it in a game, so I could be very off base here. But I think it's incredibly cute and lovely, and it looks pretty decent. This is Everstrike. This is a hybrid card, black-white hybrid card, 3 and 2 hybrid white-black mana. For elemental spirits, 2/2 of flying. Everstrike gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it. And it has an ability from the graveyard. You can pay X and 2 hybrid mana to return Everstrike from graveyard to play. You may put an aura card with converted mana cost X or less from your hand into play attached to it if you don't remove Everstrike from the game. So what I really like about this, it has evasion. It also becomes very big very quickly if you just load up on those cheap cantrip auras that we talked about earlier. Every single time you do that, it gets +2/+2. So it can easily be swinging as a 6/6 or an 8/8 or even more with evasion. And then when it dies, at instant speed, whenever you want, at the end step before your turn or whatever, if you have an aura in your hand, and you probably will because it's an aura deck, you can just pay a pretty mana efficient cost. It's the cost of the aura plus an additional 2 mana essentially to return to the battlefield with that aura. So it's now again a 4/4 with flying that you flashed into play from the graveyard, and then you just load it up and with auras again, and you swing for lethal. So I really like the grindiness of this card, and I wouldn't run it in a faster deck like Killian, but in this deck, this is all about grinding your opponents out and dragging it on. And the longer the game goes, the better it goes for you. And I think Everstrike is like the epitome of that. It's just like this evasive beater that is slow, but it will get you. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I look at it a little different. How you kind of said, like, it's basically the cost of the aura plus 2 mana. I actually look at it from the positive. It's the cost of the aura, and then you're getting a 3 mana discount on Everstrike.
Right.
You have to pay its 3 colorless. So it's actually even more mana efficient than just casting it, than putting the aura on it. This is a card, like, for example, with our Necrolegia, to where at the end step you draw, your 10 or 15.
This is a card you discard.
I'm perfectly fine with that. And I got this grip of auras in my hand, and it's like now all my auras essentially have flash, and they're going on a 4/4 flyer. That's pretty great. And you know what? Maybe it's something to where literally each turn someone's trying to swing at you and kill you because you are grinding out the game, and it's on hour 3 and people's eyes are bloodshot. And it's like, okay, well, we're just going to attack them. As everyone do that. And then literally each turn you can say, okay, well, I'm going to pay 4 mana, Everstrike out, little cantrippy thing. I'm going to draw a card. Up, it died. Up, next one, I'll pay 3 mana this time. Little cantrippy thing. And it allows you for very mana efficient to kind of protect yourself on everyone's turn. But then, like you said, on your turn, I mean, you could do a fat enchantment on it, load it up, and then it's going to someone most likely.
It's going to get even better with my favorite card in the bottle capping.
All right. right. Well, let's head over to the spice
Dibs.
section.
I'm calling dibs on it. Here we go. I don't care. We're going out of ways. Okay, number one card in here on spice for no reason is Conviction. Colorless and white. Enchantment creature. Enchant creature gets +1/+3. White. Return Conviction to its owner's hand. Incorrect. This is not a spice. This is a grain card. This is a hops card. This is a yeast card. It is literally anything but a spice. Whoever put it in spice, you are a freaking madman. It costs 2 mana, +1 with all the other artifacts we have on there, right? So immediately you're getting a buff to whatever creatures we're talking about, right? Then you're going to draw your cards. Then you're doing constellations. Guess what? We just talked about it. You play Everstrike. It dies for 4 mana. It comes back to battlefield, then bumps back to your hand at instant speed when Everstrike dies, and then you do it again and draw a card and go on from there. There's no way in hell that this card is a spice, and it makes me very upset, and I'm not normally this animated about cards, but I have to draw the line at some point in the sand. This is not a spice card.
Yeah, I would actually probably put this in the yes, just because with so many of your reductions, you're basically paying 2 mana to literally do everything you want as much as you want.
And over again. Blasphemy. Yeah. It's insanity.
I was a little bit hard on it because I guess I eventually cut Conviction from originally this deck was a Killian deck, and it was very much aggro, very much low to the ground, and it was very much like incremental card advantage is not what I want. I want to kill people turn 4, so I don't want an incremental. I want to be burst draw. I want to be as quick as possible. Conviction's too slow. At best case scenario, it's going to be double white every single time you bounce it. In this deck, though, I definitely concede that it's probably not a spice card. It's probably a lot better here. Because this deck doesn't want to win on turn 4. It wants to win on like turn 11.
How good it is with your commander. The reason why you built this. Literally 2 mana for an experience counter. Are you insane?
It's very good here. It makes experience counters. It triggers Constellation. Everstrike is very cute with it. I like that a lot.
Yes. And I think the text that a lot of people with Daxos, and I'll just say it, I was one of these people because I don't play Daxos or see it often. So whenever our friend would play the deck, I would always think, oh, you're paying a colorless and orzhov to get a enchantment creature, but that creature's power when it enters the battlefield, it's whatever. So, you're the first one you make, if you only have 1 experience counter, it's a 1/1. And then the second one you make may be a 2/2. I always forget that they constantly grow as your board.
Right.
Yeah, so if they're on the battlefield already, they start a 1/1, but then they'll be a 2/2 as soon as you get a thing.
As soon as you play Conviction 6 times.
Conviction is the fact that someone could look at your board and you may have Conviction in hand. They're like, okay, well, he has 2 or 3 of the Daxos things out there. All right, well, the board wiped, got rid of all my stuff, but I should live. I should be good to the next turn. If you have 10 mana, which you probably do because you said you want to be grindier, you want to be turn 11, 12, 13, you could out of nowhere one-shot someone because you could just cast that over and over 5 times. That's 5 experience counters. No, those 3 guys that maybe were 3/3s are now 8/8s. And that is for sure lethal when you're talking turn 11, 12, 13. So I like the fact that this card can literally out of nowhere just kill someone.
I will be taking no further questions. Pass turn.
I agree. You sold me on Conviction. There's actually a card that's better than it. If we talk about in a higher budget. I left it out because this is a cheaper version of it, but we could
I think we're probably talking the same language, but we got a way to finagle it in for less than $40.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the next one on there, and these next 2 are true spice cards.
I agree.
Martial Impetus is the next one on the block. That's 2 colorless white, enchantment aura. It's an uncommon for 26 cents. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and is goaded, and whenever enchanted creature attacks, each other creature that's attacking one of your opponents gets +1/+1 till end of turn. This card, yes, it gives you some of your enchantment stuff, but you're not really doing a goad theme or trying to incentivize people to attack each other, because like you've said, the deck is more kind of not stacksy, but it is more controlling, and so people are going to want to kill you. No one ever wants to leave the control player live. That just doesn't make any sense. But I could say that this card is very good because I literally did this on Mr. Bever's Twitch stream. This will have now been 2 weeks ago. And I threw it on the Quandrix players. I believe it was their Essex. and it just absolutely wrecked because they had to attack. And then it's like, well, if I'm attacking, I might as well attack the other people. And they even tried to say, oh, well, I'll attack you and get the +1. It's like, no, sir. It's only for opponents. So then they started hitting my opponents and getting that extra buff. So it does have a home. I do think it would actually be kind of cool, though, if you had this late game. You got your 4 or 5 Daxos tokens out there. Throw it on one of your own creatures.
Yeah.
And then they're getting the experience counter buff, and they're all getting the +1/+1. That's real. That's basically, if you're getting what would that be? 2 power for 3 mana across your 4 or 5 creatures. Late game, that's probably going to be enough to at least kill one person.
I also want to bring up that a certain card that I'm not going to go into details, but may have some sort of Spirit Jail that used to be absurdly expensive is now a quote-unquote budget card at under $2.
All right. Well, Tomer, you got the last spice card. Why don't you read it off?
So the last one is very similar to this one. It's Parasitic Impetus. This is a black enchantment, 2 and a black. Enchantment aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and is goaded. So it has to attack each combat if able and attacks a player other than you if able. And whenever enchanted creature attacks, its controller loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. This card, I think I'm like one of the only people who likes it. I like it a lot. I really like the goad mechanic because I always see it as like this cool, like indirect removal spell / damage prevention. Because not only like do you deal with the creature, as in the creature's not swinging at you. It has to swing at an opponent. So if it was planning on blocking, it can't do that anymore. If it's a really big creature that has 1-shot potential, you could potentially have potentially there we go, directed a lethal attack to an opponent that didn't want to be, that the controller did not want to 1-shot, which I find very just fun. Like it leads to really these cool, fun situations. Of the Impetus cycle, I would say this one is probably one of the weakest. The life drain's not super significant. This is not a life gain deck or anything, but nonetheless, it's an aura. It's an enchantment. It has inherent synergies in the deck, and I will run the Impetus cards at any given opportunity. The red one, I legitimately think is an amazing card. The Martial one, the white one, I think is way better in this deck. As you mentioned, this is like a token deck, so you can sometimes just put it on your deck, and it will be enough to make a lethal swing. This one's probably the weakest, but I just really like Impetus cards. I like the gold mechanic a lot. I find it really, really fun, and it adds a cool dynamic to the deck. So I just really like, it brings me a lot of joy to put like just cast a spell and see what havoc it does. It's probably not the most optimized card, which is why it's spice. But personally, I really like the goad mechanic, and I'll try to play them as much as I can.
And that's fair. And that's literally with our channel why we developed that spice category, because sometimes you have a card or a mechanic that you just really like. And I mentioned it earlier, Alter the Brood's kind of my spice card. I will jam that into decks as often as I can, because it's like, what? I can't get on that soapbox.
Yeah, we're way past that, Mr. Combo. We're way past that.
But hearing you describe the Impetus cycle and the goad mechanic, it's like it kind of fits your deck, sort of, but then at the same time, it's something that you enjoy. But you know, if there was a card that's better than that you still keeps you under budget, it's like, oh well, these are the cards that are first on the chopping block because they don't really fit. And if I could put these other cards,
sure. And if you don't have like a special spot for the Impetus cycle like I do, these are the cards that I would recommend cutting first. But I really like them, so if it would be my version of the deck, I would jam them in every time.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I'll say is it would be weirder if you're playing like 3-color black enchantments don't matter, right? But the fact that you are playing in these colors, and it's feeds and everything else, it makes this subpar card that's on a super budget way more palpable into actually the theme of the deck, right?
Correct. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up the spice package. Now we're going to head to the bottle capping. And as a reminder, there's going to be Tomer's, Big Tucks, and I's cuts and adds to the deck that are all budget, because we're never in budget month. But we can't talk about mana-only lands. But once again, budget month. I don't think we could afford a Serra Sanctum on a budget.
But it is a mana-only land as well.
All right, so Tomer, I know this was difficult for you because you just literally built the deck, but what card would you cut? And what card would you add in, even if maybe it kind of gets us off the $40 budget by, some dimes or nickels?
So, like I said, there's 2 pet cards that, they're definitely the weakest cards of the deck. And the first one I would cut, the weakest of the bunch, is definitely Parasitic Impetus. So if I was looking to upgrade it and I was focusing on the power aspect of the deck, I would cut Parasitic Impetus because it is just overall the weakest card, even though it's an aura and has some synergies. And I'd throw in a card that I would consider a staple in aura decks like this one, and this is Kor Spirit Dancer. Kor Spirit Dancer is a 2-mana creature, 1 and a white, for a 0/2 core wizard. It gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it, and whenever you cast an aura spell, you may draw a card.
Oh man, that card just screams.
And this card also used to be like $20, so it's also got reprinted into the ground.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of pretty decent reprints to it, but it is absolutely fantastic in the deck. There are a lot of auras in the deck. I think at least 25 or so. So you can be consistently drawing at least 1 card off them. And the other thing is that it is also a nice beater. It's a good blocker and a beater because there's so many of these auras. Their main purpose is just to be cast and draw a card. And the enchantment itself, like you can just enchant whatever you want, really. You can just load them all on the Spirit Dancer and get +2/+2 for each aura you put on it. So it will eventually become, like a 6/6 blocker, and then eventually it will start attacking and being a win condition in its own right. But the incremental card draw is just really fantastic here, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and I can agree with the cutting of the parasitic for this. You're actually, and this is something we've kind of also talked about when we do our cuts and adds, is you're actually reducing your CMC by 1, going from a 3 down to a 2, so you're making it more efficient. You are now adding in more white, so we probably are going to have to cut some swamps and add in some plains for a little bit color distribution, but man, this is another one of those cards with all of your reductions that you have and all the ways that you have bringing stuff back from the graveyard. I mean, hell, you could attack with this as a 0/2 and Sun Titan, bring back your 2 things with Sun Titan, and boom, you just added 4 power plus maybe whatever else those aura would maybe give it buff-wise or, evasion, things like that. So yeah, I can see why you cut it, seeing it like 248 on Goldfish with the Battle Bond version, doesn't really quite fit, but I still think you did such a good job at doing a $40 budget to where it's like, hey, if you $50, is it like, okay, can I put an extra 10 spot and maybe make the deck significantly better? I still think that's pretty budget.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like with $10 worth of things, you can get a lot of big upgrades into the deck.
Totally.
All right, I'll go next. So this is a card. It's one of the flip cards.
Ooh.
And it's one of the few ways I could see what you're trying to do, because you're trying to have some form of protection. I just think it's like a one shot with no way to actually get it back. I don't think it actually makes the cut. So I'm going to cut Sajiri Shepherd.
I think you are incorrect on this one. No.
Colorless white instant. It's an uncommon for 35 cents from Zendikar
Rising. Yeah.
And it states target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. And then the flip side is it enters the battlefield tapped, and it can tap for a white. So as a one shot, I'm not hot on it. It doesn't really feed anything in the deck. And I think your CMC is so low with everything you're trying to do that even if it's on Daxos, unless we're talking that magical, not even Christmas Land, it'd be magical hellscape to where Daxos is now 13, 15, 17 mana. Sure, in that very niche scenario, similar to how I talked about that one enchantment, drawing a blank on it. Minions Return. Like, you're always going to do that on your opponent's stuff. I guess in the, magical hellscape, if you have to put it on Daxos, fine. And I kind of look at that card in the same light.
I think whatever you're going to cut this for, I think the better cut would be a Plains, because I think Sergei's Shelter is just a better version of Plains in this deck, but I didn't got created.
All right. Well, the card I want to add, it's coming in at $1.27 on Goldfish. And I know that's why you cut it, because it was probably over $1, and that's one of the ones you needed to do. But I think this is still keeping the deck on a budget. So all that glitters, holy crap! That's a powerhouse.
Oh my god!
So colorless white enchantment aura, enchant creature from Throne of Eldraine. That trash set, absolute garbage. Confirmed. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. It's under 3, so Sun Titan will always be able to get it back. Most likely, you're casting it for a single white, and that single white is most likely giving that creature +10/+10 at any given point in the game. Absolute yeast banger.
I can't. Yeah, great call. I can't believe I missed that one. This card is so stupid.
It's definitely it's a very potent finisher, because you don't even need a token army or anything like that. You just slap it on a creature. There's one that's a little bit cheaper too. Ethereal Armor. The main difference, it does the same thing with enchantments, but the main difference, it doesn't count artifacts. So this deck does have a few artifacts. There's I think 5. This one will get you a little bit more value out of it, but Ethereal Armor does cost 1 less, so I feel like they're kind of close, but both of them are good inclusions to the deck. I think they're just good ways to add a big defender, trigger aura related stuff, enchantment related stuff, and go in for a lethal if you have an evasive meter.
Let's be fair here, guys. Ethereal Armor does give one of the most busted abilities in Magic the Gathering. First strike.
Oh, it does give it first strike too?
Yes, it's way
I didn't even know that. I played that card. I don't even remember. Sick.
All right, Tuck. Well, what are you going to cut for your first cap, and what are you going to
Tomer, I know how you operate, and I think you have a bunch of these cantrip spells that I think we can kind of move. I think we can kind of move them, I think we can kind of move them around. So one of the ones that I think is a weaker is Scourge Mark. So I get it. I understand. Scourge Mark is, in fact, hold on here. An enchant creature for a colorless and black. When Scourge Mark enters the battlefield, draw a card, enchant creature gets +1/+0. So I understand, right? We're getting this train going, we're kind of doing this thing. But I think that you have certain auras in this deck that give evergreen abilities that are just better than this, right? So I think with my 3 cards, you're still going to be under the $40 budget. I'm not sure about MTGGoldfish, but the number one, our old pal, Danny DeVito, smoking cigars, Saram Senior Artificer.
Yes.
To me, it's an easy add in here, and I'm sure you did not put it in because you're not a basic bitch like me. Saram Senior Artificer is a colorless and a black legendary creature, dwarf advisor. Whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, draw a card, and it's sitting at around $2 ish. So again, the reason why I think Saram is a better option than some of these cantrip auras, because he is now another target, even though he doesn't have an evasion. For 2 mana, you're getting your 2/2, so he's kind of on mana curve parity, and now he's another person that as soon as he gets some semblance of evasion, or as soon as he gets big enough, and then you rogue passage him out, he will be able to start swinging it for damage, as opposed to just draw a card and get +1/+0.
Yeah, I mean, SRAM is definitely a card that I didn't put in for the arbitrary restriction on MTGGoldfish. It was $2 or something like that. Yeah. But he is definitely one of the first cards I would think to add. So yeah, definitely a good swap. Excellent card draw.
Yeah, especially Tomer, how we kind of talked about the $10. We're at 40. What does $10 get me? Even though this eats up 25% of that $10 budget, I think the value it adds to the deck is probably a $10 quote unquote card value. Yes. Because you have so many auras, you're probably, and I like what you kind of said, to where are you going to get this trigger at each turn? you'll 100% for that 2 mana. Every single aura, you're going to cast at least one every turn, if not 2 or 3. And if that's getting you 1, 2, 3 additional card draws that turn, that could draw you into more auras or draw you eventually into the board wipe that you may be digging for. So I think, guys, if you built Tomer's deck at the $40 mark and it's like, okay, birthday, Christmas, whatever, I want to kind of keep to this budget. I want to do as, a cheap upgrade. Adding SRAM to the deck is just leaps and bounds.
And you guys are spot on.
All three of mine are going to be that exact same description. So get ready.
Sick.
All right. Well, let's move on to the second cut and add for the deck, Tomer. I believe you're going to be cutting the other Impetus.
I actually swapped. I swapped here. I changed it. I'm keeping you guys on your toes. So the card that I'm going to be taking out is actually going to be Crystal Chimes. Crystal Chimes is a fantastic recursion engine. It's a 3 mana artifact that does nothing immediately, but you can activate it, pay 3, tap it, and sacrifice it. Return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to your hand. Now, this card isn't very good. It's very, very good in the deck because your graveyard is going to fill with enchantments pretty quickly. Like they're all auras, so whatever is enchanted, when it dies, the auras are going to die too. The other nice thing is that if you put the auras back into your hand, they get cast triggers when you recast them. So Daxos, it works with Daxos, works with Sigil of Empty Throat. And the other thing that works really well with it is Sun Titan. It's a 3 mana artifact. So if the game is going really long and you get back all your enchantments with Crystal Chimes, and then you need to do it again, you can get it back with Sun Titan and then do it again if you really need to. However, there's one card.
You are making me. You're saddening. You're saddening somebody because
I saw the happiness drain from your face.
I bought this card specifically for the Siona budget build that you posted on MTGGoldfish, and here you are throwing it in my face.
No, it's great.
It makes me very sad.
It's a great card. However, the thing that I found out is I used to run 3 mass recursion cards in my aura decks, and I found that it was actually too much. So I wanted to cut down to 2 of the best for the mass recursion. And this one, despite being very good, it gets all enchantments back. You still have to pay the mana to recast all of them. And again, we are a slow deck, so that's not the worst thing ever. But sometimes you have to discard down to hand size, and that's kind of awkward because you just spent all that mana to put them back in your hand in the first place. So there's one card that's even better than Crystal Chimes, or 2 cards that I consider better than Crystal Chimes. One is already in the deck, and that's Open the Vaults. Returns all enchantments to the battlefield, so you don't even have to recast them. This is immediate.
Let me guess the other one. Replenish, because you're gonna 4,000 times.
Well, replenish is a bit expensive because of reserve list.
Yes, of course.
So it's out of the budget.
You can't get it in gold bordered. Anyways, I digress.
Yeah, or you can just proxy it. But the one that's actually cheapish, is Retether. Retether is a 4 mana sorcery that is basically, it's literally replenish, but it's restricted just to auras. So while replenish hits all enchantments, Retether only hits auras. It's the same mana cost. It's a 4 mana white sorcery, 3 and a white, for a sorcery that says return all auras you control to the battlefield, enchanting whatever targets is legal. So this is, while Crystal Chimes is very good, I think Open the Vaults is better, and I think Retether is even better than that. You don't get the cast triggers, and you can't recur it constantly with Sun Titan, but the upside is the auras immediately enter the battlefield. You don't have to pay that extra mana to recast them, and this is like an immediate swing. Like, you have an empty board, somebody austere commands you or cleansing novas you, and you just had to discard all of your auras, and now they're in the graveyard. You pay 4 mana, and then suddenly, boom, all your auras are back on the battlefield. You get a bajillion constellation triggers. Everything goes insane, and your board state is better than ever. So that card's super insane.
The only thing I do like it. The only thing, though, I would say, because this deck it's a little funky on, are you trying to do enter the battlefield or cast triggers? So I think you kind of have to, guys, if you're building this, I think you need to pick a direction and be able to kind of follow through with that. Because the one thing I see is, a lot of the auras are more cantrippy type stuff. It's not like you have what's that, Eldrazi conscription in here, because that card is crazy expensive and also an absolute powerhouse. So you have to kind of figure out, am I trying to go for constellation triggers, or do I want cast triggers like with Daxos, for example? Am I trying to get, those experience counters? And so I think that's where you could probably play around with Retether versus Crystal Chimes, play the deck a few times and figure out what's more important to me and how I'm playing it. But I do like it, and I also I'm reading the reminder text that they have on Goldfish for the Duel of the Planeswalker version. It states, aura cards that can't enchant a creature on the battlefield remain in your graveyard. I love that this card is so specific that it only gets auras for creatures. I've just never seen something so niche like that. That's like saying it can only be equipments with core or kobolds.
It's also nice that it actually gets around Shroud and Hexproof, because the cards don't target. You're not casting them, so you don't have to target the creature. They just enter the battlefield attached to any creature that you have.
Oh, trust me, I'm familiar, because we used to have a player in our play group with Brago, and he would have some of those disgusting enchantments that he'd throw it on his own creature and then blink the enchantment and then throw it on your hexproof Shroud thing, and it made me cry.
Also, one defense to the cast versus constellation debate, though. Another purpose of these cantrip auras, though, is when they do enter the battlefield, they will draw you a card. So if you do have a bunch of cantrip auras in your graveyard and you retether, you're still going to be drawing 3-4 cards.
That's fair.
And those will probably find you more auras to immediately start casting. So Crystal Chimes will always get you a lot, but sometimes maybe that it might be a little bit excessive. How many you get into your hand and you don't need all of them. This one will just immediately put them all into the battlefield. You draw a bunch of extra cards off the cantrips, and then you have more to cast anyway. But you're ahead on board because you didn't have to spend all that extra mana.
You redeemed yourself. Yes. This card
betrayal.
Retethers won me the game 3 times with Siona. So yes, okay. Tomer, you're still on notice and still on thin ice, but you did redeem yourself on this one.
You don't have to. You can keep all 3 as well, or you can take out Open the Vaults for it instead. Whatever the flavor.
Or you can end up cutting the card that I'm going to cut next, because I have tried to make this work. It's too expensive. Profane Procession, getting it out of here. So colorless Orzhov, that's gonna be your white-black legendary enchantment. It's a rare, and it's around 70-ish cents. And it has an activated ability that's not a tap, so if you had the mana to do it multiple times, you could. And that's where I think this card kind of falls flat, because basically to do its effect, you need 18 mana to go through the whole thing. So 3 colorless Orzhov, exile target creature. Then if there are 3 or more cards exiled with Profane Procession, you transform it. And then it transforms into Tomb of the Duskrose. It's a legendary land that can tap for any mana in your mana pool, or you can activate its ability for 2 colorless Orzhov, put a creature card exiled with the permanent onto the battlefield under your control. I get it. It's cool. It's cute. You have some Graveyard Recursion. Sun Titan will grab it when people get rid of it. I just think the whole 18 mana investment to actually get what it wants to do is just way too much. The card, though.
I was going to say, I totally agree. This probably is a spice card. I kind of forgot that I put it in there.
You put conversion to spice, and then you just admit this is a spice card. You're out of your mind.
Well, I don't remember every single deck, I think.
Tomer, listen to me. I was told that Mr. Combo that we were dealing with an inflappable professional that never makes mistakes. I'm not gonna lie to you, my friend. I've only seen one of those, which is professional.
What's the term? Never meet your heroes. This is that situation. Yeah.
The card, Tomer. I am.
Did you use the checklist? No.
I am dumbfounded how this one maybe got overlooked, because it's only a quarter on Goldfish.
It's so
right
cool.
Now. How did you not put Intangible Virtue in the deck? Oh man. Colorless white enchantment. Creature token,
God, yes.
+1/+1 and have vigilance. That is a powerhouse in this deck because, instead of you having to kind of hold back your Daxos tokens until they're maybe big enough to do threat on board, you're attacking every turn. You're always going to have someone that can't handle because basically, once again, when you cast this, all of your Daxos tokens are getting a +2 buff, experience counter, and this giving it the +1/+1. There's always going to be someone that you can swing a 4/4 at and probably either eat up some baby blockers or get some damage in, and then you still have your blockers for when people want to kill you and you're controlling deck. So I think this swap makes way more sense. You don't have the option to exile creatures, and creature removal's not a premium in the deck, but I think that kind of goes to what we talked about earlier in the deck review, that a lot of times these more standard staple cards do become higher, so you can't really do them on a budget. And so, your Swords to Plowshare, your Path to Exiles, you can't really put these in. And so I get it. You want the removal, but I think what's better than creature removal is player removal. I think that's
true. Okay, so I'm 100% on board with you on the Profane Profession. I think this card's pretty bad. Because I remember how many times I've actually seen Profane Profession. Each time, it's super sucked because the person had it there, and then they basically have to keep all their mana up to activate it whenever. Yep. Because it's still 5. It's a lot, and it just puts a big target.
The only thing I'll say about Profane Procession that I know in my experience is that this card destroyed me in a cube. That's all I remember.
Oh my god!
I couldn't play card. I couldn't do anything. It was horrible.
And beyond that, yes, I agree. When it's 1 versus 1, it's incredibly oppressive. When it's multiple opponents, so every opponent wants it gone. And if they don't have a enchantment removal for it, they're just going to swing every creature at you because eventually all their creatures are going to go anyway. So might as well. So definitely agree with the cut. Intangible Virtue though, and it also kind of goes with all the glitters at the same time. What I've found, at least with Daxos in these grindy decks, is it almost feels unnecessary. Like the card is good, and maybe I'm downplaying the usefulness of the vigilance and whatnot. But with Daxos and the token generators, as long as step 1 is you stay alive. And then eventually, Daxos is just going to kill your opponents. You don't need to attack. Yeah. Daxos can die. He can die again. Your tokens can die. It doesn't matter because eventually you just cast Daxos. He sticks and you make to your
point, the point being is the experience counters aspect of Daxos is more important than the tokens and the value he's getting out, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're saying? Yeah.
Well, it's more like you don't need the buffs to the tokens because the tokens are enough that you will eventually just overwhelm your opponents. Step 1 is just don't die because if you get overrun very quickly, then it sucks. So that's why I'm not too high on Intangible Virtue, and even Ethereal Armor and stuff. I'm kind of iffy on it. Even Eidolon of Countless Battles is at least a beater by itself. But if you don't have tokens on the battlefield and you have an Intangible Virtue, you feel really sad. If you have 3 tokens, you're still not feeling that great. But if you are in the late game and you have a bunch of tokens, do you need the Intangible Virtue? I would say probably not. Sure. So I will disagree.
I think you're right. Yeah, late game, I think you're right. I think my mentality with this is going more to this now allows you to do stuff in the mid game and early game, so you're not just being that player that's okay, I did a bunch of stuff, pass, or as Squee McGee, our audio producer, would say, sitting tight.
I like sitting tight though because I'm just I draw cards, I ramp a little bit, I put a token on the battlefield, I'm good. All right, you guys do your thing, I'll remove whatever's threatening. I don't need to attack. Why do I need to attack? Does it draw me cards? I don't think so. I don't know.
Oh my!
You'll die eventually when I'm tired of drawing cards.
That's the thing I've ever heard. Why do I need to attack?
Look, I'll kill you when I'm good and ready. But until then, I'm going to draw some cards.
Listen here, young chap. Yeah. When I'm damn well good
just
and ready.
Doomwake Giant just says, "Get off my lawn. Let me draw cards in peace." I'm not here to finish you off because then I won't be able to draw any more cards. That's the thing.
Egads.
So it's like a mentality thing.
Well, Tuck, I know you alluded to it, that you're adding a lot of stuff that's going to be drawing cards, so that's a very good segue.
No. This next one is just a value card. Again, I know it's a basic one, but here we are, whatever.
You're so basic.
So basic. Yeah, basic. Rune of Sustenance, see you later. Colorless and a white, enchant permanent. When Rune of Sustenance enters the battlefield, draw a card. Tomer, I get it. It replaces itself. Congratulations. We did it again. We have done it again. And then as long as enchanted permanent is a creature has lifelink, as long as enchanted permanent is an equipment, it has a creature has lifelink. I think if you ran some semblance of equipment in this deck at all, this would be interesting, right? Like lightning greaves, perhaps, or if that's too expensive for you, as it is for me, a Swiftfoot boots, or perhaps again maybe a Whisper Silk cloak of some variety. I think this one would be more interesting, right? But we're going to make it really easy so I can move on to my last point and continuing to lose my mind over your guys' choices, because that's been entirely more fun this episode. Cigar Aid, congratulations. We figured it out.
Oh, yeah.
One white, you may cast Aura, doesn't matter spells as though they had flash whenever and doesn't matter spell enters the battlefield under your control. You may attach a target creature you control. Again, like I said, I've realized that all my choices are very pedantic, boring, and basic, so there's not much to talk about. I would much rather just lose my mind over what your guys choose to cut and add.
I love Cigar Aid. I thought that's great. I personally would not cut all the cantrip auras over the other stuff, but I really like Cigar Aid. They're integral. They do the things. If you cut too many of them, then they don't do the thing anymore.
But
I still remember when Cigar Aid got previewed. I lost my
it's so
insane.
That card is so amazing, especially when you get it down turn one. I would rather have that than a turn one Soul.
100%, especially in the right deck. Now, to be fair, it is you're getting half the value out of this card that makes it so insane. But the point why I put it in is you have all these auras, right? And so many of them are situational dependent on what your opponents are doing. So just the fact that now you can cast these at flash speed, that's why this is more important to me than drawing a card off a doesn't matter aura potentially. So anyways,
I think it's really good in the deck because the biggest weakness of the deck that I just tell you straight up is going to be combo decks that can pull off their combo in a single turn, because a lot of this deck does not do anything at instant speed. It's all sorcery speed. So either you have to run more instant speed answers, which I just neglected, like D-Spark or whatever.
But that also sucks because that's less auras that do the same thing at sorcery speed, right?
And this is the perfect way of getting best of both worlds. You're still casting your auras, but now you can interact with people who are like, all right, I'm going to play my combo piece number 1, combo piece number 2 on the same turn. I win. And you're like, all right, I guess you do, because sorcery speed, this allows you to actually interact. So that's a really, really good one. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And I think, Tomer, to your point with that, because I actually have a Brutaclad 7-Dwarf Tribal all-permanent deck. And I stayed true to that. But when we did that episode, Tuck actually recommended the Shark Typhoon enchantment because you could cycle it at instant speed. And so it actually gave me something just in case, like you said, if someone's like, okay, out of nowhere, I'm going to kill you. It's like, whoa, okay, let me, I get to draw some cards, but let me get this shark out there to at least kind of protect myself. Or what it actually turns out to be is, you're in step, I'm doing it, making like a 15-15 shark, and then all my tokens turn into 15-15s and I kill you for the win. So having that option when you are kind of dedicated to your theme of having some way to interact on other people's turns, even if it may not be the best interaction, is helpful. All right, well, we're on the last cut, the last ad. Tomer, bring us home. What are you cutting? What are you adding?
All right, I'll preface this with don't be mad.
Tuck's gonna lose his mind.
Don't be mad. But you know that card you wanted me to build around? It's good. Look, it's good. It's an enchantment, Ephemia the Cacophony. We went over this one around already.
Yes,
but the Heartbeat's the one that you were
just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
Squeeze gonna listen to this and start crying.
So Ephemia is great.
What's better than Ephemia? What do you got?
So there's better token generators is the thing, and also it hurts a recursion, which kind of sucks. So instead, I will add a trademark meme card of mine. This is Eidolon of Rhetoric. And this is the one you should double check with your
is this the draw one card turn shit?
Yes, you should double check with your opponent. God. This was personal recommendation. This is not. You should double check with your opponents or play group rather. I shouldn't call your play group opponents, but you should double check with them that they're like cool with such effects. But Eidolon of Rhetoric. This is a 3-mana enchantment creature, 2 and a white for an enchantment creature spirit. 1/4 that says each player can cast more than one spell each turn. It's a little bit mean, and it can hurt us because we do have a lot of like cheap auras and whatnot. But the real key thing here is that we can play absolutely fine casting one spell each turn because of Daxos. Like you pair Eidolon of Rhetoric with Daxos, you cast one spell, you'll probably still have mana left over, but then you just dump that mana into Daxos and you are fine. Whereas your opponents probably don't have an equivalent mana sink that is so powerful that you want to be activating anyway. So this is the type of card that you're not going to jam out all the time. You'll have to think about it. But once you do put it on the battlefield and you have Daxos on the battlefield too, maybe you also have some protection for Daxos. You have like the Shelter or the Malakir Rebirth or whatever like that ready in the wings, or you put an enchantment that protects him as well, like Kaya's Guile or Kaya's Ghost form. Your opponents are pretty much screwed if they want to cast multiple spells each turn. And like I said, the deck is very vulnerable to combo decks that try to do I win on my turn by setting up multiple pieces. Eidolon of Rhetoric just completely shuts that down. And it's also an enchantment.
Why stop there? Like, I mean, think of the other options, like Rule of Law, the thing that says you can't draw more than one. Joseph Labyrinth's like can't draw one more card a turn. I mean, if you're really thinking about it, like if you have a bunch of artifacts, like why not run Winter Orb, right? Like that all tracks, you know? Like might as well just add all these things in that are artifacts arbitrarily. Like I'm sure there's like Smorstock, the artifact.
You saw Doom Foretold.
You guys can see Big Tucky is
You saw Doom Foretold. If that was not a foreshadowing to which direction this deck could go.
There was two, like as soon as the Crystal Chimes came out, that's when I lost my brains.
So I would get worried. I get it, the Daxos is nice, but I would get worried that it's like, well, I have like a bunch of cantrips that I need to do, and I can only do one. So I think I would only feel comfortable with this card in my deck if I had some sort of sack outlet, just in case. If it's like, okay, I kind of need to do something this turn, you have a way to get rid of it.
I can't believe I'm saying. I can't believe I'm saying this.
I don't know how expensive.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I completely agree with your combo. I can't believe it. What is happening?
Yeah, like I'm looking it up right now. How expensive?
It's not expensive.
Card.
Eidolon?
Well, no. I was thinking of like you could put High Market in for one of your lands. It's only $237 right now. I'm showing the Double Masters copy, so it's still, as we're talking like that $10. Can I make the deck better? I think if you add this card, guys, pay a couple extra dollars, get High Market.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It still at least taps for a colorless, so it unlike like a Maze of Ith or something that literally it just does the thing. At least with this, you could sack a creature and gain a life. And in theory, you would be, okay, it's time for me to do my thing. Or even, I got Sun Titan. I kind of need to do some stuff. Let me sack this guy. And then Sun Titan will get it back. And so I'm still able to kind of tax my opponents to an extent. Or not tax. I am controlling my opponents. But I still get to kind of do my thing. But yeah, no, and actually we'll go right into mine because the combo thing I could see, and I have a card that I'm going to add that's only 79 cents. I was 1 penny off from the 78-cent arbitrary number I came up with, but I think this card is going to do a lot. But I'm actually just going to cut a swamp. Personal preference, sure. I'm usually in that 34 to 36 land count. Seeing it at 37 with the other modal potential lands that could come in, I think you're fine on your land count. So, how do we not have Fate Unraveler in the deck? Fate Unraveler, 3 colorless black, enchantment creature hag. It's a 3/4. Whenever an opponent draws a card, it deals a damage to that player. you're worried about combo players. How do combo players usually win? It's drawing 15, 20 cards in a turn. And if they're greedy SOBs, which they all are, they're probably paying life to do so through a Necropotence or something to that effect.
A Necrologica.
You wanted to draw. And I think the perfect example is we have a player in our play group, Forrest Day2 Wong. He's a pro player. And a lot of times when he's about to win, he'll like, okay, well, I'll pay 15 life, draw 15 cards, or, whatever. And it's like, okay, well, you're actually going to double your damage now, which will probably kill them. And it being an enchantment, you're going to get all your triggers. It is, unfortunately, 1 mana higher. So, Sun Titan's not going to be able to get it back. So that does kind of suck. But I think if we're worried about combo wins through card draw 9 times out of 10. Let's make sure they're punished as they do it.
I like it. I like it. I like 37 lands because I also had cycling lands in there too to kind of help offset it. But
right.
I don't know. I can totally see that. I can totally see 36 lands. It has 4 MDFCs. So if you're treating the MDFCs more as lands than as spells, it makes perfect sense because you have essentially still virtually 40 lands in your deck. So you're still not going to hit all your land drops. I think it could, and I actually didn't think about Fate Unraveler at all. That didn't pop up in my head, but I feel like it's going to chip away at your opponents very consistently. Right. And if they do want to combo off, you're very much right. I think they're going to have to find an answer to it before they can even start drawing cards. And they need to draw cards. They need to draw cards to find answers usually to get that. So it's going to be very painful.
Catch 22.
It's going to be very painful for them. So I like it. I like that one.
I like it too.
All right. Well, Tuck, last one, man. Let's wrap up this bottle capping and complete Tomer's Daxos mini enchantment.
I'm going to make it real easy for you guys. Pentarch Ward, out of here. No. 2 colors and white. Enchant creature. As Pentarch Ward's enters the battlefield, choose a color.
Card draw, Tuck?
Listen to me, Tomer. Tomer, because you are seeing the trees for the forest. You want to draw 1 card per cast. I want to draw you 1,000,000 cards in 1 card.
But it does so much.
2 colors and a white. Enchant creatures. Pentarch Wards enters the battlefield. Choose a color. As it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted creature has protection from the chosen color. This effect doesn't remove Pentarch Ward. Now listen to me, all right? We're putting in Fate Unraveler. We're putting in Saran. We're putting all these other things. And why is Conviction in the spice? Because we have identified a card that is in the yeast, the hops, and the grain that costs 1 less. Let's go Flickering Ward. 1 white. When you play Flickering Ward, choose a color. Enchanted creature gains protection from the chosen color. 1 white. Return Flickering Ward to its owner's hand for $3. Ba-boom! It is not in budget, but this is a card that will win you the game every single time. And credit to our old pal D. Durrell, APB still out for, potentially, since I've moved. He played this card, and I was like, wait, what? He's like, I don't know, I found it. Like, I looked it up. Yeah, and it's like, I'm just going to get insane value. So the reason why it's a hop, you can defend your commander or any other card like your old pal, I gotta look it up, the Everstrike. The reason it's a grain, because this is going to draw you like 4 or 5 cards off Saram alone. The reason why it's a yeast is because this is going to help you build your giant army. I'm assuming the reason why you didn't put this in here was because it was over budget, over $3. Yeah. But here we are. I told you I wanted to be animated about your guys' choices, but then I got animated on my own. I will be taking no questions.
The whole, where we're talking about like the 2 white guys, where it's getting a lot of the cast triggers and all that kind of stuff. I think if we just look at Tuck's ads in a vacuum, that's basically the $10. Because I mean, Sigarda's almost $5. So basically, if you do Tuck's ads, that's eating up your $10. But I think what it does, especially with another flicker type of effect, is Sigarda's aid allowing you to do instant speed. You could swing with your Daxos token, and it could be a 3/3, and it's like, okay, I'll take 3, and it's like, let me do this Flickering Ward 7 times or whatever, and now you're dead. So I do like how this can be a hops, but with the combination with Sigarda, this is a true yeast card, because basically for 2 mana, you're getting a plus.
I think that's the nicest thing you have ever, or the nicest or most positive thing you've ever said about any 3 of my cuts since we've been doing this for almost 2 years.
It's very cohesive. Yeah, all these ads kind of synergize very well together and kind of contribute very well to the deck as a whole. So there's like an overall gameplay on that. Like all these cards really work off each other. SRAM drawing cards off the Flickering Ward and casting at instant speed. And yeah, like it's combat trick, but also works so well with Daxos and gives you interaction with combo decks. And I just like the idea of just going an entire turn cycle. You can cast all your auras at instant speed. You can choose whether I want to make a token with Daxos if I need to, or I cast a spell if I need to, or I do combat trickery if I need to. So yeah, I like all those ads. I've not sold on the cantrip cuts, but you know what? You made a very good argument for
I'm cutting your cantrips for 20 card draw instead of 1.
I would kind of like the read the bones before a cantrip. I like the cantrips.
I actually wanted to cut Read the Bones, but I didn't, because I was like, Tomer loves drawing cards, and if I do any card draw cuts,
I feel like that would be a good compromise. I would keep the cantrip card.
Okay, fine.
Cut Read the Bones.
Cut Scores of Bones. Cut Scores Marks around. I don't care.
Yeah.
All the instances of sorceries are out.
I cut Necrologia before I cut Rune Immortality.
Are you kidding? Wait, for reals?
I really like. I like synergies.
We're at the end of the episode.
Synergies. Layers of synergies. Constellation Trigger gets back with Sun Titan, triggers Daxos, draws you a card, you retether it, and then it draws you another card. It's just like a peanut butter.
Tomer, you've been just lying to me for months, for years.
Look, they're all good cards. They're all good cards, Suck. But you know what? Sometimes you have a lot of jelly and you need some peanut butter, and Rune Immortality is your peanut butter in this deck.
Oh my goodness. Well, more ways to draw some cards, guys, as we're giving away a C21 commander deck. So we will materialize 100 pieces of cardboard rectangles in your possession, plus a CMD Tower playmat and sleeves from our sponsor, Level 1. To enter, it's super simple. Just promote the content we produce. You get an entry for every interaction you do with us on social media, plus being a part of our Patron community. We will announce the winner on MTG Action 4 News June 1st and our social media account soon after. And yes, these giveaways will happen every month. It could be a sweet precon. It could be a bundle. I know for next month, we're going to be doing a Modern Horizons 2 bundle, similar to how we did a Time Spiral Remastered bundle. It just kind of depends on what Level 1 can help us out with. But we would love a 5-star review. Hit the subscribe button. Leave some feedback on whatever consumption platform you're listening to, whether that's a YouTube or a podcast. And if you enjoyed it, let us know. We want to know. And if you hated it, it's all done. So if you'd like to find out how to reach us and all the content we do, here's how you can do that. You can reach me at Mr. Commodore number 5 on Twitter, all spelled out except for the 5. Big Tuck, where they can get you.
I am actually on Twitter at Big Tuck tweeting. And this week, I wished Robert Pattinson and known actor Danny Houston birthdays. So I am more active than I've ever been in my life.
You can reach our main account at CMD Tower on Twitter as well. You can also go to our website where the deck list will be posted, and the Goldfish link at cmdtower.com/BNBE91. Basically, just type in chosen by Heliod, Mesa Enchantress, Doom Foretold, Tower.com. Our audio producer isn't here today, but you can reach him at Dear Squeeze. So if you would like him to help you out with any of your projects, audio editing, anything like that, he could do that remotely. Or if you are in a band and you want to come to the KC metro area, he does have a full studio with lots of instrumentals. Tomer, if people once again want to get a hold of you, find out where your content's at, how they do
just head on over to MTGGoldfish.com. You will find my content there, and MTG Goldfish Commander on YouTube. You'll find all the content there as well.
And of course, guys, if you want to engage our awesome video editing team at _Tcoats on Twitter as well, please, we're been doing YouTube now for a few months. We want to hear feedback on how we can make the videos more engaging. If you would like to hook up our sponsor with the orders you're already doing, head over to level1gameshop.com. When you place an order in the order notes, just type in CMD Tower so they know that you came from the collective. And of course, they do sell tons of product. They're an amazing local business here in the Kansas City area. So go order from them online. They ship across the country. But if you would actually like to help us improve the content, maybe get Tuck a microphone that doesn't sound like he is from the 1910s, you should head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMD Tower. We have 4 different tiers, but the one we want to highlight is just join for $1 a month to get access into the Discord. And if you have questions for Tomer about this Daxos deck, you can @ him in our channel. And when he has time, he'll be able to answer it. So we always have our content creators join it whenever we have guests. And of course, we have the Quarantine Battlegrounds, which is free as well. So if you're looking to James some games online, you could join that. Plus, those different tiers that you join give you additional entries into the monthly giveaways. If you're an existing patron supporter or become a new one through a referral of a patron supporter, shoot us a message on Patreon. We're going to send whoever referred you some free swag for just infecting you with the collective mindset. Yes, one day we all will be one mind and under a mind slaver. Of course, you guys can go get our swag if you can't do a monthly contribution at cmdtower.com/merch. We do sell everything on there. Please go buy it. I still have so many packs of sleeves. If I do become homeless, I could, though, sew them into a blanket for shelter. And of course, Freeway, just share the content you're watching and listening to, because we really do appreciate the engagement and the support that our community provides. And Pink Royal, thanks for the music you guys provide. So Tomer, little over 2 hours, Daxos mini enchantments. This was, looking at the deck, I was excited. Now talking through the deck, I kind of want to build it because it seems degenerate like I am. How do you feel the conversation went? How do you feel the recommendations to the deck? And is this one that you may even want to debut on a Commander Clash in the future?
Well, first of all, how dare you? Second of all, this was great. This is a great conversation. I loved it. It was really cool to gush about Commander. You guys were really, really nice to me. I appreciate that. And also the recommendations were really, really spot on. Like a lot, like I would say every single change was definitely for the better, and there was definitely some insights that I didn't even realize about the deck that you guys nailed very quickly. So that was really cool, really, really nice to be on. It was great talking to y'all, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the conversation was great. It was amazing having you on. Definitely, we're going to reach out to you in the future because this was super exciting. But we did our path to 32. We talked about all the decks that me and Tuck actually own in all the different colors, and so we kind of went on to this theme thing like we talked about in the beginning. And Budget Month was the one that honestly I was very concerned about.
We both had one deck.
As Tuck said, we have decks that we thought that were budget, and then you look at them on Goldfish or something, and you're like, oh, this deck's $150. That's not budget at all. So it's been a fun challenge, and I think this episode is helping me because my mindset always goes to if it's a budget deck, it probably isn't going to be powerful. I'm not a CEDH player, but I do like strong decks because I like games to be over in about an hour and a half, somewhere in there.
Even though you own a CEDH deck, it's one of your favorite to play. So just put that out there.
This deck, then.
But I think this is a deck, though, that with some of these ads, I could see myself making this a lot more aggressive. And definitely, like, I'm controlling, I'm staxing my opponents, but at the same time, I'm still draining you for 15, 17 life each combat phase. So thank you, because even though we kind of threw you a curveball with that Harpy, you were able to take that and really make a good deck. Tuck,
I think... I just think there's this point where, like, you see someone on the internet so much and you, like, really, identify with them as a person, as a deck builder. And then when we actually, like, walk through it, you realize that, like, maybe they're a monster. Maybe they've misled you in pretty much every idea that you could think of. So I am
the dangers of parasocial situations.
Tomer, this has been an absolute pleasure. this deck is really fun. Like you have such a unique view on Magic and how to build and how to do it right with like limited budgets, and make really fair decks. So it really, you know, I like to make a big stink about things, but in reality, it's really been a true pleasure. This is a really fun deck. It's just been a lot of fun and really great talking to you. So I'll stop gushing there.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. See ya.